Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good things. And you know, every once in a while, you just need a good stealthy ninja, and we've got our own in one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
How can I be a stealthy ninja if you just tell everybody that I'm a stealthy ninja?
Well, you already killed them. That's the thing. It was already too late. It was
they're
already
gonna see me coming, John.
Never saw you coming. Speaking of which, first of all, Rob, happy belated birthday to you. For those of you who don't know, it was Rob's birthday over the weekend.
Thank you.
Couple of big exciting things. You got to go to the movies for the first time in over a year.
I did, and it was. You know what I loved about being in a movie theater? The movie I saw, of course, Army of the Dead, had some tremendous sound design. And to finally, I'd forgotten how much I missed gunfire and explosions and screaming and the sounds of human flesh being devoured by zombies. I mean, to be enveloped in those sound fields, you know, and feeling it in my bones. I'd forgotten how much I missed a good sound system, John.
Yeah, and it follows up because you're going to the movies again today, because you and I later today are going to go see Fast 9. We're going to go see Fast 9 a little bit later today, which I'm very, very excited about. Very stoked. Now, of course, we can't talk about it once we come out of the theater, but look for social media reactions coming to that soon. Anyway, guys, glorious day to have you guys here with us. Here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to spend the first half of the show taking some predetermined topics, and then the second half of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. How do you get a live comment and question on the show? Really simple. Simply go down into the description of this video and you're going to see a tip link. You can click on it there, or you can enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblog/TV/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question read on a video if it's appropriate for the show. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. Okay, guys, we've got a number of things to talk about here today, and we're going to start with something off the top, and that is this. You know, Rob, one of the movies that a lot of people have been buzzing about and talking about in genre circles has been the fact that Warner Brothers is bringing us back into the world of G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And we got Snake Eyes. We got Snake Eyes coming. Now, I think a lot of us found it pretty interesting that instead of launching with a G.I. Joe movie per se, they were going to kind of, it looked like on the surface, going the route of like the MCU and start it with an individual character. Anyway, then it got really interesting because they added Henry Golding, the breakout star from Crazy Rich Asians. He was great in The Gentleman. He's been good and solid in everything. That What a Simple Favor that he was in. He was so good in A Simple Favor. He's really great. But we've been getting close to the release date of it and wondering, when are they going to start showing us some stuff? Now, they began showing us some images, which we talked about the other day. But Rob, it's now here. We've got our first trailer for Snake Eyes. They call it a trailer. It is really a teaser. It's 1 minute. It's not like your traditional 2.5 minute long trailer. It is very, very much just a first taste, because there's not a lot of dialogue, not a ton of it at any rate. You don't really get a sense of anything going on in the story. It's, Rob, really what it is, it's just a little taster. It's like, hey guys, Snake Eyes is coming. This is what you can expect. A hell of a lot of ninjas fighting with swords. And what else are you coming to see this movie for? So they left a lot to still show us later. They just gave us a little taste. I'm going to admit this, Rob. Considering we are relatively close, like we're 3 to 4 months from when Snake Eyes is supposed to come, I would have thought we would have gotten a full fleshed out trailer for their first trailer. But still, I think this 1 minute thing did give us a nice little taste. We got a sense of what this movie is actually DNA wise is going to be, even if we don't know much about the story yet. I'm sure that'll come in future trailers. But anyway, Rob, you had a chance to check out this trailer. What was your initial reaction to it?
Dude, anytime people are fighting other people with swords in the modern day, I'm pretty much in. You know, I really like Henry Golding, and you know, he was a great romantic lead in that movie with The Mother of Dragons. Yeah, Daenerys Targaryen.
It's the Christmas movie. I can't remember.
Emilia Clarke, and I really liked him in Crazy Rich Asians, but in The Gentleman,
he's so good.
He was so good, and he's obviously a very talented actor who's very versatile. And so seeing him as Snake Eyes, I'm like, yeah, most of this trailer, he's not wearing the signature helmet, and he's out of costume, and I'm like, okay, this looks like something that I could really get behind. And as long as dudes are killing other dudes with swords, please bring it on. It can't come soon enough.
I agree. I like what we saw. Again, it was just a little taste. Let's not overhype it. But for a first little taste, it's like, what people are coming to see this movie for. And so you loaded the first teaser with it. Nice move. Whether the movie's going to be any good or not, we'll find that out soon enough. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this first little teaser that we've got for Snake Eyes? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did it increase your enthusiasm? Do you not really care so far? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move into our main topics here today, shall we? And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? It's really simple. You guys come up with our main topics. Whenever you come across a big topic, issue, or story that you think we should cover as a main topic here on the John Campea Show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Ryan Markley, who writes, "Hey, John, I noticed a small number of reviews coming out as of Saturday night for this movie. I found it enjoyable." He's talking about For Those Who Wish Me Dead. "I found it enjoyable overall. Not great, but to the point. Is there something I'm missing that critics aren't talking about? Would love to hear your thoughts. Bring on the filthy." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, there is the new movie For Those Who Wish Me Dead that is now out in theaters and, of course, on HBO Max if you want to watch it that way. I've been excited about this movie for 3 reasons. 1, the premise sounded interesting. 2, you got an Academy Award winning actress who doesn't appear in a shit ton of movies, and Angelina Jolie leading it. But third and most importantly, Tyler Sheridan is the guy behind it. And everything this guy has ever touched has been magnificent. Particularly to me, Hell or High Water, Wind River, films like this. Of course, he was the writer of Sicario. This dude and he was in the first season of Sons of Anarchy, Rob. He was an actor in the first season. Whatever this dude does turns to gold. So I was very excited to finally getting around and seeing. I saw it later than I wanted, but I had family commitments this weekend and a terrific UFC event on Saturday. But that notwithstanding.
There's that.
There was that. And I will tell you this. This is the worst Tyler Sheridan movie he's done. That doesn't mean it's totally bad. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's not bad. But it is, I have just grown accustomed to Sheridan's level, high level of excellence. Like just beautiful high level of excellence. And so when a filmmaker like him comes along and delivers something that could generously be called pedestrian, it seems extremely disappointing. And you know what the funny thing is, Rob? I found that most of the problems with this film were regarding the script. Were really kind of targeted at the script. There are things that happen in this story. And again, this is not a spoiler discussion or a spoiler review, so I'm not going to spoil anything. But there are things that happen in this thing. Like when you're watching a low-budget 80s horror movie and you're like completely shaking your head at the decisions the teenagers in the horror movie make, Rob? You're familiar with that? I found myself several times going, why would this guy do that? Oh my God, why did she just do that? Come on, that dude would not do that. And I just found it, I get it. A lot of it was done for the pushing of where they wanted the story to go. But every trope, Rob, from the villain over monologuing to, certain things in nature that don't happen that way happening, some real extreme coincidences Oh, so that just happened to happen at that moment. Again, listen, Angelina Jolie delivers an incredible performance. Game of Thrones fans, Littlefinger. I keep forgetting the actor's name, but Littlefinger, he's in it. He's actually really good. Who's the kid who played Beast in the new X-Men movies? What's his? And he was the star of Warm Bodies as well, but I'm freezing on his name right now. And he's the new Beast. Guys in the live chat, throw that in there. Who is it? Maybe I should just look it up here.
Why am I drawing a blank?
It is Nick Holt. Nicholas Holt.
Nick Holt.
Thank you, guys. Nicholas Holt. Nicholas Holt and Littlefinger as the bad guys, really good. And they had a great on-screen chemistry. Tyler Perry even shows up in this movie. And for a small part, I'm like, wow, he's really good in this too. So performances, John Bernthal, performances across the board were good. The basic premise is a really cool idea. It's a perfect length. It's a little over an hour and a half. It's a perfect length. It's a really good length. So it's a nice tight package, but it was script problems that kind of kept it from being like a really good film. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, decent film. You guys saw I had it up there on Rotten Tomatoes a second ago. The majority of the critics are liking. It's got a 62%. The audience ratings are 85, so generally positive. I went in, admittedly, Rob, with really, really high expectations because...
Well, yeah, rightfully so.
Taylor Sheridan's... I don't know, where have your expectations been for this film right now?
Well, I mean, I saw the trailer to me looked really interesting, even though it looked a little overstuffed. Look, okay, we're in Montana. There's a woman who works at she's a firefighter or spotting forest fires, and yet the criminal stuff happening. I'm like, well, that's an interesting milieu, but it kind of looked a little hard to pull off, maybe a little over the top. But I really wanted to see it because of Mr. Sheridan's involvement, and I'm still going to watch it.
Do you think... Will this be a speed bump? Because I think it's generally being seen across the board right now, Rob, that, okay, not a great outing. And Sheridan's name has been one of the most electric, exciting names in the movie business right now with everything he's been doing. Will this represent any kind of significant speed bump to his kind of ascension, I should say, or will this kind of be overseen pretty quickly? How do you see it?
I don't think it will, because he's already got such a great body of work behind him. Like you said, Sicario, Wind River, Hell or High Water. I mean, he's been involved with so many prestige projects. And the thing is, people will just add this to the list. And even though this might be not up to par, it's not an unmitigated disaster. You still have an Oscar winner starring in it. And it looks to be quite an impressive from a production standpoint. So I don't think it will hurt him at all. I think it's yet another project that gets made, and I think it can only be, look, getting anything made in this day and age is a good thing. But I think he's already got such an impressive resume that this will just be yet another notch on his belt.
All right, guys, question is for you. Have you had a chance to see Those Who Wish Me Dead? By the way, after seeing the movie, the title really doesn't make a lot of sense either. But whatever, it's just a title of the movie. Have you guys had a chance to see it? If so, what did you think? Did you think it was okay like me? Maybe you thought it was great. Maybe you thought it was terrible. Whatever it is you guys thought, jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's go on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Dave Perkins, who writes, "Hey, John, I hope your week is starting off well." It has, thank you so much. "I've been hearing from various news outlets that AT&T may be spinning off WarnerMedia and have it merge with Discovery. Do you believe that this is happening? And if so, might Discovery be a good fit with Warner, or at least make more sense than AT&T? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And well, Dave, it's not a report. It's not something that might happen. As of last night, it was, but it's done. At least the deal is done. It hasn't been executed yet. It still has to go through a lot of approval processes, and it's going to have to go through a government regulatory board, and there still may be a few steps that have to go. Could be a year, Rob, or more, before we see it made final, but the deal has been reached. AT&T is no longer going to be the owner of WarnerMedia. AT&T is divesting itself of WarnerMedia. They are getting rid of it. AT&T no longer wants to be in the game. As the New York Times puts it, they are shedding the media business. A media business, Rob, that just a few years ago, AT&T invested over $85 billion to buy WarnerMedia and all of its assets. And today they have let it go for a paltry sum of $43 billion, marking a massive loss. And Rob, this is the second massive loss that they've taken in the last little bit, because just a couple of years ago, AT&T also acquired DirecTV for a deal worth $40+ billion, and they just spun that off too and got rid of it for $16 billion. AT&T right now seems to be in the process and mode of, we need to correct all the mistakes that we've made over the last 5 years, even though we have to take heavy losses to get it. Rob, it cannot be, this may lack a little bit of the sexiness that Disney acquiring Fox had, but this is a tectonic shift in the Hollywood landscape.
Yep.
This is a massive, massive deal that has gone down. We're going to go over and take a bit of a look. Let me break down the basics of this for you guys, okay? Let's just look at the basics before we start reading through all the kind of stuff. And we're going to do that by jumping into the Campea classroom just for a second, okay? So here's what's going on, all right? Because it can appear a bit confusing. AT&T, I'm not going to put the and symbol. AT&T splits off WarnerMedia for $43 billion that they get from Discovery. Okay. Discovery will now take all WarnerMedia and merge with it into a new company. All right. So what we're going to have now is that this WarnerMedia entity that AT&T no longer has any ownership in, they have divested themselves of it. They are no longer responsible for its debts. They're no longer selling. They've spun it off in exchange for $43 billion in stocks and cash. And now WarnerMedia is going to merge in with Discovery and form a brand new company. It's going to be a totally brand new company. Now, this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because some people are reading and some people are writing into me, Rob, and saying, well, wait a minute, John, I heard that AT&T will own 71% of the new company. That is not true. That is, just get rid of that. That is not true. This is very, very important and key to understand, okay? Now, this may sound like nitpicky little bits of info, but believe me, this is incredibly important. This new company, we'll just call it new company, okay? This new company will comprise of shareholders, just like AT&T has shareholders, Nabisco has shareholders, Apple has shareholders. This brand new company is going to have its own new set of shareholders. Those shareholders will comprise shareholders of 71% of AT&T shareholders, and the rest Discovery shareholders. Okay, so as a part of this acquisition deal, the AT&T shareholders are going to themselves as individuals comprise 71% of the ownership of the new company. But this is key, everybody. Please hear this. Shareholders, Rob, owning something does not mean the company owns that something. Let's put it this way. Rob, let's say you and I are both shareholders in Apple. Okay. I actually do own some shares in Apple. But let's say you and I both own shares in Apple. And then you and I also, as individuals, there's like 5 million other shareholders, but
Sure.
You and I as individuals also, I happen to own some stocks in not Logitech, but the company that owns Logitech. Anyway, we'll just call it Logitech. I also own shares in Logitech. That doesn't mean Apple owns part of Logitech. I am not Apple. The shareholder and the company are two different things. And this is important and something that a lot of people have been confusing, okay? In law, I'm going to oversimplify this, okay? So this is not going to be specifically accurate, but you'll just get the general idea. In law, a corporation is an individual entity. It is not the collection of the owners or the shareholders of the shareholders. Okay? The company is not the shareholders. The shareholders are not the company. The company is its own individual entity that has shareholders. Shareholders, Rob, who own tons of other shares in other companies and everything too. All right? So AT&T does not own 71% of the new company that WarnerMedia and Discovery are going to merge into. Their shareholders do. Separate from AT&T. That's an important distinction. And again, it sounds like, legal, technical, business mumbo jumbo. It's very, very important distinction to understand. AT&T has gotten out of the WarnerMedia industry. They are no longer involved in media. They want to get back now and focus on their core businesses of telecommunications and internet communications and all that kind of stuff. The people who happen to be share owners of AT&T also now are shareholders of this new company that WarnerMedia and Discovery are going to be. But Discovery, Rob, so Discovery paid $43 billion in cash and stocks and shares for WarnerMedia to merge with it apart from AT&T. Okay? I hope that makes it clear. So AT&T will no longer have any interest in Warner Brothers, WarnerMedia, CNN, TBS, all the things that are owned over there. Now, understanding that, let's go over and take a quick peek at what the New York Times is writing about this, because this is pretty interesting stuff and it's pretty key. So what we've got here is this. AT&T, in abrupt turn, will shed media business in deal with Discovery. We're going to read a couple of paragraphs here, guys. AT&T wireless carrier that thundered its way onto the media business 3 years ago with grand visions of streaming on millions of its customers' cell phones wants a do-over. It has agreed to spin off its WarnerMedia group and merge it with a rival programmer, Discovery Inc., the company's announced Monday. The transaction will combine HBO, Warner Brothers Studios, CNN, and several other cable networks with a host of reality-based cable channels from Discovery, including Oprah Winfrey's own network, HGTV, The Food Network, and Animal Planet. The new company, it's a brand new company. The new company will join together two of the largest media businesses in the country. AT&T's WarnerMedia Group includes the sports-heavy cable networks TNT and TBS. In addition to Discovery's strong lineup of reality-based cable channels, the company has large international sports businesses. The merger will also be a significant about face for AT&T, a telecommunications giant better known for servicing fiber lines and cell towers than producing entertainment and courting Hollywood. Industry experts questioned AT&T's daring $85 billion purchase of Time Warner at the time when cord cutting was only accelerating. The spinoff indicates a failed acquisition strategy. As part of the deal, AT&T will be able to shed some of its debt and get some cash and bonds. Together, it would amount to $43 billion. AT&T shareholders will own 71% of the new business, with Discovery shareholders owning the rest. So now, Rob, the people who were shareholders of Discovery and the people who are shareholders of AT&T, they now will together be a new group of shareholders for a brand new company that we don't know what to call yet. HBO Overy, Disc HBO.
They should call it Warner Brothers something.
Yeah, or maybe they'll just call it Warner Brothers something, Discover Brothers. I mean, I don't know what they're going to call this new company, but it's going to be interesting. But Rob, part of the reason this is so damn significant is because right from the beginning, a lot of people were kind of looking side-eyed at the idea of AT&T taking over HBO, of AT&T, a telecommunications company, a company worried about selling you cell phones, now owning WarnerMedia and all of its sub-companies. And that merger was directly responsible for the decisions being made about HBO Max and moving all the movies to HBO Max. It was that thing trying to please the AT&T overlords with that move. And, you know, it's just been a failed experiment ever since AT&T. Nobody's really been happy with what AT&T has done. Other than, some of the Snyder Bros been really excited that they greenlit Justice League. So that's cool. And they've done a couple of other good things as well. Let's not be hyperbolic here, but I think it's spinning off from AT&T and now joining up with another company whose focus is not selling cell phones and cellular plans, but a company that is focused on delivering entertainment to its consumers and its customers around the world, is at least a better direction for Warner Brothers. Now, what's really interesting about this is that the guy in charge, the guy who's going to run this company, is the CEO of Discovery. He's the one who's going to be running it. And I'm forgetting, I had his name here a second ago, but I've lost it. But Jason Kilar, the CEO of WarnerMedia.
It's David Zaslav.
David Zaslav, thank you. So David Zaslav, the CEO of Discovery, he is going to be the head guy of this new company. Jason Kilar, who is the CEO of WarnerMedia, Warner Brothers or AT&T now said he's going to remain in charge of WarnerMedia until the actual transition happens. So that could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years. And then what happens to Jason Kilar, the chief guy at WarnerMedia, what happens to him after the merger? Well, that's going to be up to David. That's going to be up to the head of Discovery to decide what happens with him. Maybe he stays as kind of like the overseer of the WarnerMedia branch. Maybe there is not going to be a WarnerMedia branch. Maybe it's all just going to be merged into one thing. I mean, who knows? But his future is now in question. Jason Kilar's future is now in question. So this is interesting, Rob, because I think this is going to be, when you listen to stories from people like the Property Brothers or Chip and Joanna Gaines, the hyper popular hosts of Fixer Upper, and you hear from all these people, one of the things that encourages me is that I've always heard that Discovery was a network where they really wanted, because we've been talking a lot about this lately, they want the creators to lead. They just, if you got ideas for shows, you got ideas for how to make your shows better. You have ideas to make content that's going to connect with people, that people are going to enjoy and want to get on board with. Go. We are here to support you and to get that made, because that's how we think we're going to make money. And Rob, this Discovery Plus network, this plucky little thing that when I saw that they were launching a Discovery Plus, I said, guffaw. I mean, I like the Food Network and I love HGTV and I watch all that shit. But I didn't think a new streaming network was need for it. Dude, they've got 15 million subscribers already. They say what you want. This company knows how to connect with its audience. And more importantly, Rob, they have a wider international network right now than WarnerMedia does. WarnerMedia is instantly going to get access to a lot more territories. And obviously the Discovery side is going to benefit from this a lot as well. How is this going to impact the movies themselves? I don't think we're going to see any impact for 3 to 4 years, but I do think we're going to see a very different day-to-day way that Warner Brothers conducts business and is run than it was under AT&T. So maybe this will be great. Maybe this won't be so great, but we got a new company coming. Rob, this thing is tectonic. I mean, you heard about this. You looked into this. What are some of the thoughts that you think about, and how's your perspective on this whole thing?
Well, knowing that we were going to discuss this today, I reached out to somebody who I would consider to be the most successful and highest ranking industry professional that I know across many different levels. So this is what I wrote. I said, so David Zaslav, Discovery CEO, will now be running the film division at Warner Brothers. Forgive me, but what does that guy know about movie making? Between Disney adding their distribution execs in place over those in charge of content creation, and now this, where are the bosses who understand movie making? Will people like Kilar and Emmerich be shown the door? And here was the answer that I got. Right away, by the way. So I want to thank this person who watches this show. I want to thank this person for giving me of your time. This is the answer that this person sent me. It's pretty amazing that there were thousands of employees at Warner Brothers who went into this weekend thinking they worked for one of the greatest studios in Hollywood, only to wake up Monday morning to learn that they now work for one of the biggest reality TV companies in the world. The speed in which AT&T bailed out of their content creation ambitions took most people by surprise. However, the writing was on the walls whenever AT&T tried to mask their lackluster streaming numbers for HBO Max. Unlike Disney and Netflix, where the numbers they released were somewhat easy to comprehend, AT&T gave numbers that you needed to decipher and guess what they actually meant. This is a strong indication that AT&T was embarrassed about them and knew that shareholders would bail on AT&T if they knew the truth. Although it would have made more sense if Comcast merged Peacock with HBO Max, but AT&T would not have gotten a high of a valuation in the potential merger. Who knows? Maybe David Zaslav will eventually move on to try and acquire Viacom or even Comcast. Look at what Sumner Redstone did when he built up Viacom and eventually acquired CBS, or even when Endeavor took over William Morris. Sometimes the smaller players eventually come out on top if the bigger fish aren't careful. But to answer your question, yes, about Jason and Toby, I think their days at Warner Brothers are numbered. That explains why there have been published reports that Toby Emmerich has been trying to get a job at Netflix. Toby probably knew that Discovery would be taking over his company and saw that his contract was coming up during the closing window. Usually in these cases where a top-level executive's contract is coming up when a major change is anticipated, that executive would get a contract extension to ensure that they have a place in the new configuration. I suspect that they had told Toby that they would not give him that contract extension he desired. Frankly, I don't blame the current management because Toby has taken one of the greatest Hollywood studios to one of the last places where talent wants to work. I could write a whole thesis on how the legacy of Warner Brothers was destroyed the moment Kevin Tsujihara and Toby Emmerich took over the reins of the studio. The chummy bro culture will continue to exist until some major change takes place. So yes, David Zaslav is going to reshape the film business for Warner Brothers, but I am hoping that he can make the right decisions to bring Warner Brothers back to some sort of normalcy. Frankly, it can't be any worse than what AT&T was doing with the studio.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. I think I think Warner Brothers and WarnerMedia as a whole, I use the terms interchangeably. I shouldn't. They are two different things. But Warner Brothers, WarnerMedia as a whole, today, I think the future looks better than it did yesterday. I think them being merged in and under the control of a company who has made a business out of delivering entertainment to individuals is better than them being under the control of a company whose job it is to sell cell phones.
Yep.
And I think, because Rob, you've made over the last couple of years a lot of really good, keen observations about the dysfunction of WarnerMedia being owned by AT&T and some of the decisions that we've seen as a result of that. And Rob, one of the results has been a total destruction of their relationship with talent.
Yeah.
Like from everybody from Denis Villeneuve to James Gunn to Christopher Nolan to many others have come out and lamented that they hate working with AT&T and WarnerMedia now under the way it's being run by AT&T. They call it, Christopher Nolan even now called them the worst streaming service in the world. And, you know, I think it's interesting because the Discovery CEO in one of his first statements, now that they've taken over WarnerMedia, has been, with us, it's got to be about our relationships with creatives and talent. We've got to prioritize our relationships with talent. And Rob, I don't think it's a coincidence that he said that with the background of Warner and AT&T burning so many bridges with talent. And now we've got the new CEO coming out and saying, number one priority, we've got to build strong foundations with our talent, because that's been their background with all of their, you know, HGTV, Discovery, Food Network. It's all been because of their strong relationships with their talent. How do you see that, you know, evolving? Is that going to be the right strategy for them? Or what else does this new company need to focus on to get WarnerMedia back on track?
Well, I think, like, you know, the letter I just read and then also what you were saying is, you know, these companies are only as good and only as strong as the content that they're creating. I mean, everybody, and I think that there is a huge disconnect between corporate interests, because you can't quantify on a spreadsheet whether a movie is good or bad other than by box office. But no one ever asks, well, what makes a movie good? Well, the incredibly talented people that make that. But how do you quantify that on a spreadsheet that shareholders can look at? They can only look at the final results. So studios, especially Warner Brothers, I mean, Clint Eastwood has been allied with Warner Brothers for, I think, 50 years now. You know, he's been making movies. He's 90 years old, and he's been making movies for more than half his life with the studio. Some have been okay, some have been really good, some have won Oscars for Best Picture, like Unforgiven. But the amount of movies that Clint Eastwood has made for Warner Brothers, that's what a studio wants. And yet the corporate interests, they don't even know what that means. You know, it's like they'll look at, well, Clint Eastwood made one good movie first, and then the next movie wasn't so good. But when you look at the relationship the studio has with talent over decades, I think you're going to be in a winning position more often than not. And the problem is these new corporate structures and all this, these executives come in, they don't know anything about those kinds of talent relations because they're worried about what the next corporate earnings shows. That's how their jobs, that's how what they do is defined. But when a movie takes 2 years to get made, and how do you define that when you're looking at success in 4 times a year? And so the comparison is such a strange thing. It's a different kind of business. And I think as long as they take the attitude that, all right, what we need is great content that people want to come and buy from us. The same way that you were citing that Discovery has always looked for the talent, the shows that are being made. They're like, hey, man, if you guys know how to make these shows on time and on budget and you deliver them and they deliver the viewership that we need, more power to you. But one of the things about movie making is, man, everyone loves, it's sexy to be involved in movie making. You get stars and premieres and Oscars and accolades and all this. And it's sexy and people can't resist. You know, corporate guys from the corporate sector, they're like, ooh, I get to hobnob with Hollywood royalty. It becomes an intoxicating thing, but you have to keep your eye on the prize, man. You still have to make great movies, and that requires relationships with talent that want to work with your studio. And more importantly, your studio heads. And that's the only way they're going to succeed running Warner Brothers.
I agree. And it's going to be interesting to see too, as things progress. Again, remember guys, this process is probably because I think the Warner Brothers AT&T merger took 2 years to finalize. Between when they made the deal and when it got its final clearance from the FCC and all that kind of stuff, I think it was like 2. Now that was a little bit longer than normal, but you know, it's a lot of people I see asking in the live chat, well, what does this mean for the new Superman movie? Or what does this mean for the upcoming, you know, Suicide Squad? And what does it mean for this? Okay, so basically this. Until this thing is finalized, much like Fox continued operating after the deal was announced until it was made final and the execution of the deal happened, Fox just kept on business as normal. We are going to see WarnerMedia continue on business as normal. Until this deal is finalized and gets its final clearance, like the agreement's been made, but now they got to get it past all sorts of clearances. That process could take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. In that time, Jason Kilar, the CEO of WarnerMedia, will continue running WarnerMedia, and that includes HBO Max and Warner Brothers Studios and all that kind of stuff. So they are going to continue on. So Rob, unless a miracle happens, and like the FCC comes through and says, and you know, the Discovery shareholders ratify it, the FCC's green lights it and gives it its stamp of approval, all within like 2 months. Nothing is going to happen to Suicide Squad. Nothing is going to happen with the new Superman movie. All that's Black Adam is still getting made. It's all going to be business as normal for Warner Brothers until this thing is finally executed. But once it does, whatever isn't already in production becomes a question mark, Rob, because now it's going to be up to the new CEO to decide with his new generals that he puts in place. It's going to be interesting too, Rob, to see how many entertainment executives from Netflix, from Paramount, from Disney, from Sony may be looking to jump ship and join this new company. But it's going to change then. How do you see it?
Well, there's a brand new story that just broke in the New York Times that says Jason Kilar, the WarnerMedia chief, is said to be negotiating his exit. Jason Kilar has hired a legal team to negotiate his departure as chief executive of WarnerMedia, according to 2 people briefed on the matter. AT&T, which owns WarnerMedia, said on Monday that it had agreed to spin off the division. Mr. Kilar was kept in the dark about the deal until recent days, the people said, speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations. I think that's the fact that these mergers are happening and nobody knows. This is part of the problem. You know, you come in and there's people that who have long time, because John, movies take a long time to get made. And when you decide to greenlight a movie and pull the trigger on a studio film, you're looking at a 2-year commitment of manpower, people power, and resources and money. And so these are things that are in process, and you're disrupting that. And now the head of the studio is negotiating his exit. If he bails like quickly before this transition is made, or maybe he'll have to stick around, what have you done to what have you done to everything that you already have that's being made now? You know, Jason Kilar, if you watch him on social media, he was really excited to be at Warner Brothers. And I read an article, he walks around the studio a lot and just meets people, says hello, introduces himself, asks what they're doing, what are your jobs, like what are you working on now? And he gives people tours. He knows where all the different things were shot and which movies were shot in which soundstage. He really wanted to be at Warner Brothers. And to see this going on, I mean, obviously it'll shake out the way it does, but this is, it's going to be, again, you already have HBO Max on shaky ground. We're halfway into the year, well, not even the halfway point, where that strategy that Toby Emmerich suggested of day and date releases with HBO Max and theaters, some of it has worked, some of it hasn't. I mean, Warner Brothers is not exactly, as a studio, is not exactly on, let's call it, solid ground. So this is really going to be disruptive for, I think, the studio for at least, like you said, the next couple of years.
Yeah, now again, this was in the AT&T article yesterday. The new company will be run by David Zaslav, 60, a media veteran and longtime chief executive of Discovery, casting doubt on the future yet again of the top ranks of WarnerMedia. Jason Kilar, 50, who was hired to run AT&T Media Group only last year, could lose his job. And of course, it looks like now that it is official that he's at some point going to have to step away and stuff. But Rob, I mean, under Jason Kilar, let's look at what's happened with WarnerMedia. They have, first of all, completely evaporated their relationship with talent and filmmakers. They've completely destroyed their relationship with talent. Under Jason Kilar, you've got guys like Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve, other filmmakers coming out and say, this is the worst company in the world. This is not how you do business, blah, blah, blah. Their partners like Legendary and other financiers, they've totally burned their bridges and created adversarial relationships. So that has been a complete and utter disaster for them. Secondly, they completely botched the launch of HBO Max. I love HBO Max. I love it.
I love it.
I think it's great, but they botched the launch of it, and they are so far behind the numbers. Now, they'll put out different official numbers, but Rob, you and I both know for a fact that the people inside the halls of WarnerMedia, we know that their expectations were much, much higher than what they got. They botched that. There was a lot of discussion and whispers going around of some creative decisions that were made that did not sit well with the board of WarnerMedia, nor with the shareholders of WarnerMedia. They weren't so big about the way they've been in the news. They weren't happy with the way the whole Snyder situation was handled. They weren't happy with the way a lot of different PR things. I mean, listen, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. You never want to see anybody losing their job. But I mean, it feels like under Kilar, it has been one storm to the next. And when I read that his job could be in jeopardy moving forward, I was thinking, if I'm David Zaslav, the new leader of this new company, I don't think I would keep Jason Kilar around. I don't know, Rob, how do you feel about that?
As much as I just pointed out that he seems like a really good guy, enthusiastic about the business, it just doesn't, what's happened during this transitional phase. The fact that it was called, as we've talked about, HBO Max, I think was the most damaging thing they could have done, because it created unbelievable confusion amongst people that already subscribe to various HBO platforms. And how does this become new? So if they wanted to attract new people, they didn't even fall back on the Warner Brothers name, which I think was a big mistake. By the way, I'm looking at a CNBC real-time stock tracker. Both AT&T shares and Discovery shares are up. AT&T is up 4.53%, and Discovery is up 16%. So apparently the street feels that this is a good move. I think you're right, John. I mean, you can't just take somebody who's been running, say, Hulu, and running it as the head, a CEO, and then bring them over to a company that's actually making movies. That's what the job is, and expect them. You can't just plug in the heads of these corporations to understand certain other businesses. Everybody thinks they can do it. And on paper, it's like, look at how much experience this person has. But if they don't know the movie business, if they don't understand that so much of movie making and television is about relationships, people have to know. And what people don't really get, it is kind of, it's not just what you know, it's who you know, but it's also who is pleasant to work with. You know, you can't just throw people together to make movies. The people that make movies together, like Steven Spielberg, Janusz Kaminski has been shooting his movies since Schindler's List, you know, and Michael Kahn has been editing his movies, and John Williams has been scoring his movies for over 40 years. And people that are really successful in the movie business work with the same people over and over again, because you have to trust in their abilities in order to deliver what you need delivered, because movie making is a collaborative art. And anytime you work with somebody that lets you down, the entire chain is broken. And you can't just bring in somebody that looks good on paper and, oh, this guy looks impressive, or this, because that's not how it works in Hollywood. You know, filmmakers need to have executives at the very top, like a Christopher Nolan and a Denis Villeneuve, who take their calls and they can trust them to have what's best in mind for the movies. And both filmmakers, when Warner Brothers did this thing where, oh, well, suddenly Tenet, we're going to use that, we're going to hope it opens theaters. And I know that Christopher Nolan wanted that to happen, but then when they moved to Dune and you don't even talk to the director who's still working on the movie, what does that do? What does that do with the executive relationship with the talent? It doesn't do anything good.
No, it does not. And that's part of the reason why, Rob, I feel some enthusiasm about this new move, because they need to fix these relationships with talent. And everything that I have heard from Discovery and all the various networks that have worked with it, from, HGTV and onward, is that the talent and the producers of the content love working for this company. And if Zaslav can do the same thing that Bob Iger did, when Bob Iger came in, he was like, okay, first things first, I need generals who can run certain areas right. And he brings in an Alan Horn. If Zaslav can do that, if he can now step in,
wouldn't it be funny if that's what he does?
He literally brought in Alan Horn.
He brings in Alan Horn. Like, Alan Horn's like, no, man, I'm retired. And like, yeah, but I'm going to make it rain for you for a little while. Why don't you come in for a couple of years?
That's how Disney got him out of retirement, from running Warner Brothers.
Or better yet, Bob Iger.
Or Bob Iger. Well, Bob Iger could probably buy and sell Zaslav a few times over.
Still, like, hey, why not?
It's
Kevin
great.
Feige.
Or here, Kevin, here's you go. Jump back that dump truck full of German Nazi gold up to his place. Here you go.
Do it, but no.
Hey, everybody's got a price for the $1 million rant. By the way, Michael Gardner sends in several really big super chat badges in the live chat. Thank you, Michael, so much. He's like sent in a 10, a 20, and a $50 tip. Thanks, man. Appreciate that so much.
That's very nice. Thanks for supporting the channel.
Thank you, dude. Appreciate that. But that's why I think this is a positive thing. So just to highlight again, everybody, here's the basics of what has happened. If you're just joining us late, here's the basic gist of it, okay? What we have here is a situation where AT&T, who had owned WarnerMedia, has now divested itself of WarnerMedia. It is no longer going to be the owner of WarnerMedia. It currently is until all the approvals are done, but they have struck a deal that Discovery has paid $43 billion for WarnerMedia away from AT&T for the purposes of merging Discovery and WarnerMedia into one brand new company, whose ownership will comprise of 71% of AT&T shareholders, not AT&T the company, the individual shareholders, and the shareholders of Discovery will now be the shareholders of this brand new company that they do not have a name for yet. Jason Kilar, the CEO of WarnerMedia, is not going to be around once this deal is finalized and everything is put into place. And the head of Discovery, David Zaslav, is going to be the new head of this company. And there's still a lot more to be seen. And bottom line is, what this should mean for all the projects on the go right now at WarnerMedia, it should be business as usual. They are probably going to proceed and move on with all the movies they have planned. And you keep on doing that like Fox did until everything is finalized and executed, probably somewhere between a year to 2 years from now, Rob, is my guess. So anyway, Rob, this, again, you can't, exaggerate how big of a deal this is. This thing is huge.
Huge.
Any final thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, look, I think the future, as a fan of science fiction dystopian films, I think back to the 1975 original version of Rollerball, where the entire planet was run by corporations. And what they did was they created Rollerball to sort of placate the masses. The ad line for the movie was, in the future, wars will no longer exist, but there will be Rollerball. I kind of see that happening. I kind of see that happening with movies and these, as we have larger and larger and larger conglomerates. I mean, I see one of the dangers is that, they're going to control CNN, this Discovery Warner Brothers merger. And you end up with like what happened with Fox News. Fox News certainly has a political bent. I hope a political ideology does not infect the overall company, that turns it into something that has all of these movies are going to have a certain agenda. I hope that we can still have the diversity of entertainment, so we get all different kinds of entertainment. That's the only downside. The dystopian sci-fi fan in me is like, well, what if they decide to say, for instance, push a certain political ideology that goes from CNN through the Discovery Channel movies.
Yeah, but Discovery's never really been known for that. Like, nothing in Discovery's history has ever shown that.
But now they haven't. They've got all these things together. And I'm just saying, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. But, the dystopian sci-fi fan in me does. These larger and larger conglomerates that are overseeing more and more media, what I want to be able to see is I want to be able to see the kind of diversity of storytelling, I want to be able to see science fiction movies and horror movies and political thrillers and dramas and docudramas. I want to be able to see the kinds of movies Warner Brothers has always put out, so many different kinds of films over their very storied history, and I hope that continues under this new regime.
I put this out on Twitter last night. I'll say it again. You're going to see it. Justice League 2 is going to feature the Property Brothers and Chip and Joanna Gaines as four of the new members of the Justice League. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. It's what's going to happen. And Guy Fieri, the Diners, Drive-Ins, and Drives guy, he's going to be the new Penguin. You're going to make him Penguin in the new thing. It's all coming together, Rob. Listen, honestly, guys, I know we've talked about this at length, but we could go on for 2 more hours talking about this and breaking it down. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to discuss here again. AT&T has finalized a deal, although the deal won't be executed for some time, but they finalized a deal that they are divesting themselves of WarnerMedia. Discovery is paying them $43 billion for it to merge in, and they're going to form a brand new company with its own set of shareholders and its own CEO, going to be run by the guy there. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this whole move? I'll be honest with you. It's been disastrous under AT&T. There have been good things. Some good things have happened, absolutely. But overall, when you go down the checklist, it's been a disastrous thing. I think this is good news for WarnerMedia. It could end up being a big disaster too, but for now on the outside, I think this looks good. Anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about this? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that down, let's go over and start taking your live comments and questions here for the remaining of the show, shall we? Once again, if you want to send in a live question or comment, simply use the tip link in the description of this video. You can click on it there or enter it in at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's appropriate, of course. And of course, you are supporting the channel as you do it. And all of us here, thank you guys for that support. All right, let's get on over here and start taking your guys' questions, shall we? That's not your questions. Let me see if I can get this fixed because that wasn't your questions at all. If I turn that off, will that work? That works. Now we're back to where we should be. Sorry for the technical glitch there. Okay. Scott Brown writes, you don't like the ex-actor and ex-role question, but this is more me just getting the guy's name out there. Soap Dirishu. I think this guy would make a fantastic Superman. He's from Gangs of London and His House. He's very talented and just has a noble quality about him. Well, here's the thing. And by the way, Supermail sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks, Supermail. Here's the thing. You don't know that he'd make a good Superman because once you read a Superman script, he might be a good fit for it. He might be a terrible fit for it. So what you're saying is he would make a great Superman for the Superman you have in your head. But that's why I never go to that. Rob, I'm not familiar with this guy. I've never watched, what's it called? Gangs of London and His House. I'm not familiar with these shows. Are you familiar with any of these or this actor in particular?
And His House, it's a horror film that's on Netflix that's very surprising. He's really good. Again, I think he has a certain quality to him. I think he could play a really great Superman. But again, it depends on what the director's vision for this is and what is Ta-Nehisi Coates' script. Where does it go? And I think we can only base casting on the material, so we don't really know what that is yet. But I would leave it up to the director to make that casting choice.
All right, next up, N2A writes, 1 of 3. About the Bob Chapek question from yesterday, which would have been Friday's show, leaving aside the creative versus corporate discussion for a bit, if I were a major investor or board member at Disney, my only question would be why? What problem does this corporate restructuring remedy? I would understand if what Iger did wasn't successful, or if after a few years at the helm, Chapek decides it's time to make some changes to the structure. However, none of those have happened. It seems that ego is taking a front seat in the decision-making process at Disney, and cutting off one's nose to spite its face is a more preferable alternative to the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep up the great work. Well, one of the things that I'll say about that is, you have to recognize, because look, I made a big deal about this. I do think it could potentially be a big deal. But Rob, listen, it's not all doom and gloom, right? Like, we're not going to see the immediate impact of the leadership change for at least a couple of years. On top of that, in those preceding years, Bob Chapek very well could reverse some of these decisions and everything could be fine. I am just, as a Disney fan, very, very concerned about these changes Bob Chapek has made. And we talked about that on the show the other day. I don't have to go back into it again. But one thing I will say in their defense, Rob, is that this is not just a normal transition. This isn't just a normal, regular, okay, the time of the one CEO is done, now we just transfer everything over. We are in the midst of a major shift in the entire landscape of the industry.
Yeah.
This was a change that took place during a global pandemic while Disney was launching a platform that they quite frankly see as the future of their entertainment arm, being Disney Plus, that Bob Iger is the one who has developed and built this for years. So while I'm not saying that justifies Bob Chapek's decisions to move away from the philosophical principles that Bob Iger put in place, what I am saying is we can't just look at it like another transition. This is a transition in leadership happening during a transition in an entire industry. So it will look a little bit different. Doesn't mean I'm not still concerned. I am, Rob, but to me, we cut them a little bit of slack because I don't know. How do you address that? What would you say to that?
Well, I think you put it well. Although I will say this, the transition, the idea that they were going to put a lot of Disney distribution higher up on the food chain in terms of the creatives, like the guy who, I forget his name, who ran Hulu, they were able to be the people that would deliver the profit and loss statements.
Yes.
They would get the glory for that. And now the people that work in distribution are going to be able to supersede that. And I think, the people that work in distribution only distribute what they're given by the content creators and the people that greenlit that content. And I think that that's kind of a mistake. I think that there is, look, the one thing, content creators are the one, you can't figure that necessarily out. There's no spreadsheet that actually can effectively plot the chart or the progress of how good your content is going to be and whether or not people are going to watch it. It's undefinable. You can't. There's alchemy involved in making good movies and good television, and sometimes people either respond or they don't. And I think that's where corporate interests and the interests of creators, it's that sort of twilight zone of corporations want to be able to control all these things and know what to expect. And there's no way to do that. So they keep trying to figure out ways of doing that. How can we figure out our new quarterly report earnings? How can we make the best of these numbers? And it's a place where there's always going to be pushback, where the creators are going to fight their corporate minders, or maybe not fight, but there might be people that are disappointed or whatever. And I see that Disney has added more to that with putting the distribution and adding more corporate culture between the creatives and the filmmakers. Now, here's the thing. You still have these different fiefdoms within Disney, like Pixar, like Lucasfilm, like Marvel, and I think they'll be pretty much left alone. At least certainly Marvel will, as long as they keep delivering. But I think it might change a little bit. But why fix something that ain't broke? Disney's been doing pretty well under Bob Iger. Why would you want to change it that much? But then again, when new regimes come in, they want to change things and make that regime their own. They never want to be seen. Bob Chapek doesn't want to be seen as Bob Iger #2. He wants to be seen as Bob Chapek.
Yeah, and listen, again, I knew we would see this, but I'm going to address this quickly here. In our live chat, I already see some misunderstanding here. For instance, Cisco in our live chat is saying, it is a merger. They did not sell. Yes, they did sell. Let's be very, very clear on this. Discovery paid AT&T $43 billion in cash in stock. AT&T has annexed or has agreed to annex WarnerMedia off itself. It will no longer be the owner of WarnerMedia. WarnerMedia then and Discovery will then merge together to create a brand new company that AT&T has no ownership in. It is a brand new company, and the shareholders of this company, of this brand new company, will form a new group of shareholders that is comprised 71% of AT&T shareholders, not AT&T, AT&T shareholders. The shareholders in the companies are two different things. And the rest of Discovery shareholders. So yes, it very much is a sale that leads to a merger. And so AT&T is no longer, they took a check for $43 billion, or they will take a check for $43 billion, and they will no longer be the owners in any way, shape, or form of this new company. This new company will have its own set of shareholders comprised of people who are Discovery and AT&T shareholders, but it is its own new standalone company, divested of anything to do with AT&T. Just want to be clear about that. I know this is going to be confusing, Rob, and I know a lot of people are going to get this confused for a while because I already see other outlets that are misrepresenting what's going on. They're saying, I'm seeing outlets false, like inaccurately reporting that AT&T will still own 71% of this company. That is not the case. The shareholders will own 71%, but just as those shareholders also own many other shares in other companies as well. The shareholders are not the company. They are two different things. It's important to understand that. Anyway, let's move on here. Music fan writes, hey, John, I just watched the first episode of Halston on Netflix. I'm not familiar with it. Don't have an opinion yet, but one of my favorite movies is Trainspotting with Ewan McGregor. Rent on Time when I was clubbing coming home at 5 a.m. Love the music, and when I saw this advertised, I had to watch it. It's probably not going to be great, but it's Ewan rock and roll in the 60s. I think the man is 50 years old now. Should say hated the second one. Did not want to see a grown-up Renton, of course, from Trainspotting. A change from superhero stuff, which I do like. Best wishes, JC. Well, Rob, you and I were just talking about Halston. I have not watched this thing, but you have been watching it. What are your thoughts on it?
I watched it, and it's a Ryan Murphy production through and through. I thought Ewan McGregor was great, but I thought the show is incredibly superficial. And ultimately, I thought, look, I love shows about 80s excess. Give me all kinds of crazy promiscuous sex. Give me cocaine. Give me Studio 54. I'm in. I'll watch it. But this show, which it does do a good job of showing us these things, I thought it was really superficial. And you're dealing with, a fashion icon of the 60s and 70s, and you get very little insight into the man himself, what drove him, other than the fact that he came from an abusive household, and they keep flashing back to the same situation. I mean, there's a scene in the movie, John, where his mother dies and he goes to his mother's funeral. The whole thing is set up that he has this relationship where he became sort of his mother's savior through fashion, and maybe that's what led him. And you only ever see the same scene of him as a boy with his mother and this one hat that he made for her. And I'm like, you got to give me more than this. And it's based on a book. And while I watched all 5 episodes and I really liked some of the direction, and I will say this, the music was incredible. The main score who was written. I haven't looked up to see who actually scored the movie, but the song, the needle drop, the source cues, and all the scoring was amazing. Please, somebody put out a soundtrack album that has both the original score and all the songs they use, because they impeccably done. But the rest of it, besides Ewan McGregor's performance and some other people that were in the show, the woman who plays Liza Minnelli is a revelation. She's incredible. But the rest of the show was really kind of let me down. I'm like, I got no insight into it. I felt like it covered ground I've seen a million times before, and it left me disappointed. But Ewan McGregor was amazing.
All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Jay Bling writes, regarding the Disney situation and perhaps other situations like it, it boggles the mind that after so many years of trial and error with business processes, there always has to be someone to come along and try to fix what ain't broke. Why F it up? Again, I mean, I agree, Jay Bling. I agree. But again, understand that this isn't a normal situation. It's not like they're just continuing on business as normal. The entire industry and the company is in kind of the throes of transition. And so there's going to be new things that need to be done. I just don't think you abandon the principles of how you do business in the midst of needing to make fundamental changes to reflect the changes going on in the industry. I don't think you need to change your principles. And that's the main thing that concerned me, was that not so much, who reports to who and blah, 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 but the abandoning of the principles that Bob Iger had put in place that had worked for them for so many years. But again, we cut them a little bit of slack because it is an interesting upheaval time. But anyway, point well made, Jay. All right, James LH writes, hey, John, one of two. So Cineworld finally reopens on Wednesday. Nice. Before the end of the following week, I plan to have seen Godzilla vs. Kong, Mortal Kombat, Spiral, and For Those Who Wish Me Dead. I've managed to avoid spoilers, even though I watch the John Campea Show every day. And you know what, John? I don't even care whether they're good or bad. I'm just looking forward to getting away from my sofa, sitting in a dark theater, and having my senses blasted with all the sound and visuals that you can't replicate at home. James, Rob, I think James just completely kind of summed it up for us. And let me ask you again, because you are like fresh off of your first time back in a movie theater in over a year that you went and did this Saturday. What were some of the things you were feeling and thinking as you were walking back into a cinema again?
Boy, well, first it was relief. It's funny. You don't really consider the actual cinema, like the environment. You get in your seat and you sit down and you have a relationship with the screen. But to me, and I walked in and I looked up and I really noticed the sloping seats, and there were people already sitting there, and I realized, I didn't know any of these people, and you never know people unless you go with friends. And the fact that I was sitting amongst strangers and we all desired to have this experience together, it really reminded me that, you know what? Movies are about people coming together to experience something in a group. They're all there. They're all supportive. It's an inherently optimistic act to walk into a movie theater because you want to be entertained. You're there because you know, or at least hope you know, that this movie is going to be great. And you want to have this experience. And you want to have this experience. You want to share it with other people, even though you don't know them. And so I was keenly aware of being in this environment, like, I have missed this. I've missed being in this place, this inherently joyful place. Like, nobody goes into a movie theater and thinks, screw this. I don't want to be here. You go into a movie theater because you want to be there. You're excited to be there. You got a smile on your face, or at least a smile on your soul, because that's why you've gone in. And I missed that feeling. I didn't even know that there was that feeling to miss. But walking back in, I was like, my God, I've missed this. I mean, my whole life, no matter what happened in my life, John, walking into a movie theater was always a spiritually joyous experience. And I hadn't had that in 15 months, and I didn't even realize that my soul had been missing that. But I felt it when I sat down. And then when the trailers started to play, and like I told you, one of my favorite things about Army of the Dead, the gunfire. I don't know what they did. A lot of times you hear generic gunfire in movies. The gunfire, the large, heavy caliber weapons exploding in the surround channels. I'm like, man, I've missed this. Army of the Dead has some of the best gunfire noises kudos to the sound design team, because I was like, hell yeah, turn that shit up, son. And I was thinking about John Schnepp because you know, I was there on my actual birthday, but I was like, man, it would have been nice to see any movie with John Schnepp, and he would have come out, oh my God, wasn't it great to be back in the theater? I'm so sweaty. It was great. I loved it.
It's
and
so
tonight,
good,
John,
so good to be back in those theaters again. Tonight.
Justice for Han tonight, bro.
Very excited. I'm so excited about going to see Fast 9 tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's keep moving on here. James LH writes, John, I see the return of the topic of 20 to 30-minute ads and trailers. In the UK cinemas, I remember queuing for a ticket, then for food, then having to wait to go in to get a good seat. So ads helped when I would be stuck in a queue. But with online booking, there's no need to get there early for a good seat. When I book up online, my e-ticket shows date, time, row, and seat. They could easily include on the website and e-ticket screen open time, then movie start time. To me, it would show more transparency. Yeah, I've said that for a long time. If you're the movie theater industry, you need to make decisions to give the people who come to the theaters the best experience that you can. The way you give them the best experience possible is not by making them sit through a half hour of commercials. I don't care if the commercials are trailers. I love trailers, but 30 minutes is too much. 25 minutes is too much. It's too much. Now, Rob, I've always said that one of the things that you could do to mitigate that is to say, okay, showtime is 7 o'clock. The actual movie starts at 7:31. Like if you did that to me, that fixes the problem. Because what is kind of deceptive, and Rob, we talked about this in my documentary as well. What is a little bit deceptive is saying, movie at 7. Except the thing is, I get to the theater and there is no movie at 7. There's commercials at 7. And then there's commercials at 7:05 and more at 7:10 and more at 7:15 and more at 7:20 and more at 7:25. And if I'm lucky, my movie that they said would start at 7 o'clock actually starts around 7:30 if I'm lucky. But yeah, I do like, Rob, the idea. And by the way, Steve Panon sends in like a $20 tip in the super chat discussion. Thank you so much for that, Steve. I appreciate the support, man. But Rob, I think that one little thing, include, hey, showtime 7, movie start time, and you actually, at least that would be more transparent and more honest. I don't know, Rob, do you think that could fix that problem, or do you think that's not enough?
Well, I think it could fix the problem, because I have to tell you, one of the things I'm going to really miss about the ArcLight is there were no commercials, and they would show 3 trailers, and that was it.
3 trailers, bang.
And you knew that kind of rhythm of you're going to get 3 trailers and a movie. Even at Army of the Dead, they showed a lot of trailers, and I'm like, it's too much, because I'm now thinking about all 5 or 6 or 7 trailers we saw, and I'm like, I don't want my mind to be full of all of that information before the movie at hand comes into play. Because then I'm like, I'm contemplating these movies, and I don't like that. I don't like to have my mind filled up with commercials and trailers. I want to focus on the task at hand, which is to watch the movie that I've come to watch. And if there's too much visual information or things before the movie, it dilutes the experience for me. And I because I usually only go to the ArcLight when I see movie theater ads, commercials or trailers that go on and on and on. I love trailers. It really becomes annoying to me. I'm like, enough. I want to settle into my seat and get in the mindset of clearing my mind of all this detritus and the cacophony of everything else and concentrate on the movie I've come to see. And I don't like it when I'm filled with all kinds of stimuli before the film starts. It bums me out, dude.
I agree. All right, next up, we've got Max Vinicius. Aruda writes, hey, John, question. I know you aren't an investor expert, but I'm starting to learn about it. I wanted to invest in Disney, but with the Bob 2.0, this Bob Chapek, dismantling the system, would it be bad to invest in Disney? 2.0 might be the downfall of Marvel. Thank you. Listen, I am not a financial advisor. I am not a stocks trading advisor in any sense of the imagination. All I could tell you is what I would personally do or not do. I would personally not buy Disney right now. Me personally, I wouldn't buy Disney right now. A report just came out about, I was watching, Rob, I don't know if you saw this, saying that Disney Plus just missed their latest set of target numbers. They fell short. That's been all over the news.
Yeah.
The kind of, until we see how the Bob Chapek reorganization and structure really settles in, personally, I wouldn't buy Disney stock. But that could be totally the wrong thing. Maybe the right thing is to buy tons of Disney right now. I just don't know. Rob, I've got a ton of money in Dogecoin right now. So, I mean, I'm buying, I bought Dogecoin. Okay. Fortunately, I bought it pretty cheap, but yeah, so I don't know. Let me just ask you this, Rob. I hand you $10,000 right now, and I say, take this and go and invest it in something. Are you putting any of it in Disney right now yourself personally?
No. I mean, again, I mean, maybe if Disney stock went down more or something, I would, but I think that there's so much turmoil going on now that I'm not enough of well, I'm not an investor at all. I'm not a savvy. I mean, I know less about investing than I do about sports. So that tells you something. But if you gave me $10,000, I'd probably put that in Dogecoin and see if it went up a little bit and then sell. But we'll see. I think, like you said, we got to watch it and see where it's going to go. Are they going to stay? Is it going to stabilize out? Where's the new Disney going to be in a year? We don't even know if the Marvel movies are going to perform. We've got 3 Marvel films coming up for the end of the year and Spider-Man. So where's that going to leave the company?
Right. I will say, okay, so this week, though, right now, as I look at it, Disney's shares have dropped this week from $182 a share by $13. They've dropped down to, as of right now, the shares are $169. So this week they've dropped $13. So yeah, I again, I'm not saying I'd never buy Disney, but I just probably, with everything going on right now, I probably wouldn't buy Disney right now. But again, I am no financial advisor, so what the hell do I know? All right, next up, Randall D. Cunningham writes, I finally went out to see The Father. I love that movie. Finally went out to see The Father, and oh my God, it shook me to my core. I went in expecting to see world-class performances from Anthony Hopkins, who won the Academy Award, asterisk. But I left the theater having watched a true masterpiece. Watching that film was such a visceral experience. And Rob, I have not had to experience in my own life the things that go on in The Father with Olivia Colman and Anthony Hopkins. But I mean, it's still, for me, it's a powerful, incredible movie. And we have heard a lot of people write into our shows, Rob, saying, I saw The Father, and let me tell you, I went through that with my grandfather, or I went through that with my parent, or I went through this, whatever. And like talking about how truly it shook them. And how it moved them, and how they just seem to be able to capture those experiences that people in that circumstances have. Rob, have you heard from a lot of people talking about that movie?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not in terms of experience, in terms of having it something that they personally relate to, but I've heard a lot of people talking about how great it is. It comes out, I think it comes out this week on Blu-ray, and I did order it. So I haven't seen it yet. So I believe it does arrive this week.
Wait to see Hopkins's performance, man.
I can't wait.
So good. Okay, next up, Junior Breedlow writes, Hey, John, long time, first time. Thanks so much for writing in, Junior. My question is, why doesn't anyone do Hollywood Power Lists anymore? I used to enjoy an Entertainment Weekly and Variety's annual Powers lists, but I haven't seen them do it in recent years. Surely the order has changed with streaming. What gives? I don't know. I remember those. And Rob, I get a kick out of Power Lists. I totally do. Including, Hollywood power structures and blah, blah, blah. But I also remember those articles getting a lot of criticism, saying you're glorifying, I mean, they would get a lot of criticism, people saying, oh, you're glorifying, power and you're celebrating us. I mean, I don't know what some people's issues for it were, but slowly but surely I started to see these power lists, like who are the most powerful executives in Hollywood? Which are the most powerful, directors in Hollywood? Which producers wield the most influence and power over? I mean, I love those things, but they got some criticism, I guess, and they haven't done them. I miss them too, but I don't expect to see them making a return. Rob, what do you think about that? Did you used to like those? I used to get a kick out of them, but I don't know if they were accurate or not. What did you think?
I did get a kick out of them, but like you said, accuracy, were they truthful?
We'll start doing it, Rob. You and me will start putting out the power list every week.
Yeah, I
There we
mean,
go.
look, I can't deny that. I love the power lists that I would read in various magazines, like, Vanity Fair, and would always have those kinds of things, or Entertainment, Weekly did, obviously. But what I did like about those lists is there were people that I wasn't aware of. You're like, oh, this person is at this place. And I mean, I don't know how that would help me to know these things, but I felt like at least to know of them. You never know when you're in a meeting with somebody and somebody brings something up and you're like, oh yeah, now I've read this list, so I know who this person is. And that was what I always liked about those lists, is it just because I have an interest in the entertainment business, always have, even if I'm never going to come across people in what I'm doing, but I still like to know because it offers me some kind of insight into how the business might work and what kind of people are currently running it, which I think is helpful, especially with what we do.
Right. And to quote Castlevania Season 4, there's a difference between strength and power. They are two different things. That was actually a really good part of Castlevania Season 4. Okay, next up. Junior Breedlove also writes, what happened to the days of the $1 million spec script? Back when a Shane Black or Joe Aceras would write a Long Kiss Goodnight or Basic Instinct for $2 to $4 million a pop. Why do we never hear of stories like that anymore? Is the spec script market dead? No, the spec script market is not dead. And Rob, look, I couldn't tell you the titles off the top of my head right now, but over the past year, you and I have done several stories about there was a bidding war by 4 different studios over this script, and so won the bidding war and blah, blah. They still happen. But just, not a lot in the entertainment world the past 15 months, 16 months have really been there. But these bidding wars for these types of scripts, look, the $1 million spec script has always been the rare thing.
Yeah.
It's always been the rare thing. Most of the time, spec scripts, when they do get picked up, which is very, very rare anyway, but when spec scripts get picked up, it's usually for a much more modest sum of money. But these things still happen. The bidding wars still happen. Rob, I know I've sold options on scripts before. I never had any of them made except the ones that I made myself. But have you ever been a part of that where you're shopping it around a script to different things and having to take different meetings? You've experienced that before, yes?
Yeah, I have. I have. There was a project that I was involved with that I wrote. It was a book adaptation I wanted to make after I made Free Enterprise in the early aughts, called Nevermind Nirvana. And I got into a couple of places where I really thought it was going to get made. And unfortunately, it didn't, for various reasons. But yeah, it's always a good thing. The thing about now, John, though, is everybody is so risk averse that the reasons you don't hear about the big spec sales the way you used to is because everybody wants to make things that are either based on previously existing IPs or something people already know, and they want to. There's less chances being taken on spec scripts because remember, if you think about big spec script sales like Shane Black selling The Long Kiss Goodnight, or selling, the biggest one I remember was The Last Boy Scout. That was like that first, I think it sold for $1.75 million. It was a huge deal.
Yeah.
30 years ago. And, I don't think, but that was for a movie that was a $50 to $60 million, even less studio picture. And now the studio movies, the studios that were buying spec scripts, they're all making these tentpole IPs where they're spending $100-200 million on these movies in the hope of making $1 billion. So the studios themselves aren't really looking to make these spec scripts for $50 million or $60 million as much as they used to, because the business has changed. So maybe streamers will pick up these things, but you never hear about it the way you used to in the business.
All right. Next up, we've got the Image Wizard writes, hey, John and Rob, love your shows. Thank you so much. This Disney news makes me sick to my stomach, so much so I had to pause watching the show and watch it in 2 parts. Please don't kill my dreams, Bob. Paycheck, Chapek. Yeah, again, listen, I am worried. As a Disney fan, I am worried, and I am concerned by a number of things that we've seen. That doesn't mean that they can't change directions on a few things. Listen, Rob, part of running, I obviously nothing near the size of a real company like that, but I have run organizations with 10, 20, 30 employees. I have run these organizations, and you make changes, you pivot. Like you try something, you try a new process, and if the process doesn't work and you recognize it, you pivot and you move to a new process. It is very possible that Bob Chapek may think that this is the best way to do things right now. maybe starts recognizing and hearing from his lieutenants and generals that this certain things aren't working, and maybe he pivots and then changes back to a Bob Iger thing. Maybe everything will be fine. And I don't say that facetiously, Rob. Maybe everything will be fine. But yeah, the current set of circumstances do worry me. I mean, and so let's see where they go from there, man. But
Yeah.
let's not overly panic yet. All right, next up, BK Dan writes, John, very rarely will I steer you away from a movie, but stay away from Rawhead Rex, 1986, positively the worst 89 minutes of my life. I have never heard of the movie. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Rob.
It's a Clive Barker adaptation.
It's a Clive Barker one?
One of the stories that's in the Books of Blood. So I would say it is not, I wouldn't call it the worst thing. See, the funny thing is, now when people say it's the worst thing I've ever seen, I'm like, you should watch Plan 9 from Outer Space. Go back a little further. Rawhead Rex was not impressive.
Now, was Meat Train not one of the short stories from the Books of Blood?
No, you're absolutely right. The Midnight Meat Train, and Kitamura directed that. I like that movie.
Bradley Cooper and Vinnie Jones were in that. I remember because at one of my parties, you remember back, I used to throw these big parties at Comic-Con, and Clive Barker was at our party, and so was Bradley Cooper and Vinnie Jones. They were there as well because we were helping them promote Midnight Meat Train.
Yep.
And I was very unfamiliar with Books of Blood, and I got to sit down over a drink with Clive Barker and talk about Midnight Meat Train. And it was a lot of fun. So I wasn't aware of that. I've never heard of this particular one. So thanks for putting that on my radar, BK. I will avoid that one. All right. The Shadesman writes, Hey, John, on Friday's show, someone mentioned the Jurassic World Velocicoaster at Universal Orlando. It's funny, I actually work there. Oh, really? And I listened to that show while being at the attraction itself. Definitely a must ride if you ever come to Orlando. That's one of those serendipity moments, Rob. Like when you hear about something that you're actually at that moment, that is great. And yeah, listen, I've never been to the Universal down in Orlando, but my wife has a couple of times, and she's constantly trying to talk me into flying down there and going to, well, first of all, Disney there and Universal there. So maybe sometime this upcoming year, now that we're getting away from the, Satan's nutsack of 2020, maybe we'll try that out pretty soon. Thanks for that, Shadesman. All right, next up. We've got Playmaker who writes, Hey, John, I'm curious if it comes down to some sort of friction between Chapek and Feige. Do you think Disney would let Feige walk? Yeah. I mean, look, I get it. That is the first place we want to panic to, right? It's like, wait a minute. What does this mean for Kevin Feige? I mean, that's obviously our first point of panic, right? There's no reason to believe right now that there's any issue. But hypothetically speaking, Disney has a CEO. When it comes to the operation of Disney, there is one main boss, and that is Bob Chapek, the CEO. And if Bob Chapek, as the CEO of the company, decides to part ways with Kevin Feige, again, we're not saying that's going to happen. We're just talking theoreticals here. Then there's nobody else to appeal to. He's going to let Kevin Feige walk. Now, that might cost him his job 6 months later. That maybe the shareholders and the board decide to get rid of Bob Chapek at that point. But when it comes to the daily ins and outs and the operation of the company and the daily operations, that's going to be a Bob Chapek decision. And if he decides to let Feige walk, that's what'll happen. But I can't see that happening, Rob. I mean, in fairy tale language, Kevin Feige, Rob, is the goose that lays the golden eggs. In other words, he bends over and shits out diamonds. You don't let him go. I can't see it happening. I cannot see it happening. They know what he means to that company, and I think they're going to do everything they can to keep him happy. But I don't know that, Rob. I mean, Bob Chapek's we already heard that the head of FX is very unhappy with the new systems and transitions. Variety reported that the other day, that the former head of Disney Entertainment is very unhappy. Maybe Feige's unhappy, but I can't see that nuclear situation happening of Kevin Feige up and walking. Maybe, but I don't know. Rob, what do you think about that?
Look, I can't see Kevin Feige leaving because they've got plans inside of plans inside of plans. And I think that Kevin Feige being the architect of this, he wants to see those plans to fruition. You know, everybody wants a challenge. And I think Kevin Feige did it with the Infinity Saga, 23 movies. He proved it. Now I think his new challenge is I'm going to do it again. Now I've got the streaming shows, I've got movies. I no longer have my top tier. I don't have Iron Man. I don't have Captain America. And I think he's got all these other characters. I think in a way, he's set himself up a creative challenge over the next decade to see if he can do it again. Because if he could parlay, I was watching a video about how the Marvel's Phase 4 is not that exciting. And I think that Kevin Feige is going to prove to all of us that no, it's a lot more exciting than you might think. Just wait and see.
Yeah.
And he's going to try and rebuild and do the same thing again. Because if he does the same thing again, I mean, that's the most historic thing in all of cinema history. And then he'll go do something else because he can. Because I think it was like, I did this once, and now the biggest challenge is I'm going to see if I can do it again. And now I've got the extra added benefit of television. I get to do all those things. And then once he's done it again, he's gonna wipe his hands of Marvel and be done. And he will leave and go do something else that he wants to prove something to himself. Because that's what people do. You know, they strive to achieve. And I think that's what he's doing now with Phase 4, 5, and 6. Let's call it.
I have tried to find out what kind of contract does Feige have right now? Specifically, how much longer is the current deal that Kevin Feige is under last? And I've never been able to find out. So I don't know if he's under contract for another 5 years. If that's the case, then there's no point in even discussing what happens for the next 5 years because he's under contract. Maybe his contract expires in 24 months, in which case Disney better be starting to worry about what happens when the deal's done. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it transpires. By the way, Mandy's Cabrales and Jordan Saylor both sent in super chat badges in the live chat. Thank you for that, guys. Thank you so much for that and supporting our channel. All right. Last question we'll do with Rob here. Sergeant Ward writes, "Hey, John, you said changing the 45-day theatrical window back to 75 days is impossible. Not impossible. It's just extremely unlikely. It's extremely unlikely. What is actually preventing that from happening? And if it did happen, why would that be? 45 days is bad in my opinion." So what has happened during the pandemic is the new standard theatrical release date, the new standard theatrical window is now 45 days. It used to be roughly around 90, Rob. So for those of you who know what we're talking about when we say theatrical window, the theatrical window is the period of time from when the day a movie launches in movie theaters, how long a studio has to wait to be able to put it out on various home video avenues, Blu-ray, DVD, VOD, streaming, whatever. So theoretically speaking, with some exceptions, classically, the traditional window has been about 90 days or 3 months. That once a movie launches in theaters, you have to wait at least 90 days until you can put that movie out on home video or streaming. Some people have tried to get that theatrical window shrunk to like 10 days or 15 days, but it looks like the industry has now settled on, Rob, because Disney itself has now said that their movies like Shang-Chi and Eternals are going to have 45-day theatrical windows. It seems the industry has settled on that the new theatrical window is going to be 45 days. That is a little bit short to me, but still okay. I would have liked to have seen them move from a 90-day window to a 60-day window. I think that would have been better, but 45 isn't disastrous, and 45 could work. Now, why does it become difficult then to go back to a longer window? Think of it like this. Once you start giving your employees a raise, say you paid them $20 and now you pay them $30, it's next to impossible to revert back and go back to what you used to do. It's almost impossible then go back down to $20 an hour. It's very, very difficult to do. Once you take a step in a direction, you're kind of committed to that direction. And I think it would be nearly impossible to see that the theaters get the studios to agree to a longer theatrical window again. I think 45 is where it's at. It's probably going to be 45 for a while. I don't see it going back up. Rob, I don't know. What do you think could precipitate the theatrical window to go back up to like 60 days or 75 days or 90 days? I don't see a way it could do it. How do you see it?
Well, I really think it comes down to, obviously money. Once we get out of COVID and theaters are open and back the way they used to be, if they ever truly go back to the way they used to be, which I hope they do, if the theatrical runs are continuing to generate income, you don't want to leave that income on the table. And so if a movie like a big blockbuster comes out, a tentpole property, and it's performing in theaters really well, even 45 days in, they're going to say, well, we want the opportunity not to have to pull this out of theaters so we can let it play for 60 days or even up through 90. I always thought 3 months was a pretty good period of time because, as we've talked about on the show, theatrical releases, when they're successful, really add value to a product. Because in the consumer's mind, it's like, wow, this movie was very successful. It's something like I want to buy or I want to rent or I want to pay for a download or whatever. The reputation of a film, it does have added value when it plays in theaters for a while and people talk about it, word of mouth and whatever. I think just sticking to a 45-day window doesn't give you enough leeway. But maybe they'll just leave that opportunity open if something is a wild runaway success. Like I've heard the movie In the Heights that's coming out, the Lin-Manuel Miranda movie. It's is quite good and people love it. And I think, well, what if it's a Greatest Showman situation where it might not open at number one, but word of mouth makes it turn into something that's a huge hit and it's making money in theaters for 45 days and they don't want to pull it because it's doing what The Last Showman or The Greatest Showman did and is making big money. And if they had to pull it from theaters, I think that would be unfortunate. So it's going to be a money issue, I think.
All right, Rob. Well, we've kept you overtime here today. Thanks for being here. In the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online until tomorrow?
Well, you can find me at a theater seeing Fast 9 today.
That's right. We're going to see that a little bit later tonight, buddy.
And then you can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at Burnett RM, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
All right, dude. Thanks for being here, and I will see you in a couple of hours as we go down to Burbank there to watch some Fast and Furious. All right, dude. I'll see you in a few hours. Talk to you later. Have a good one, man.
All right. I'll see you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Okay, we still got some time. Let's get through as many of your questions that we still have remaining here as we can. Next up, we've got Ryan G. writes, "Hey, John, I just finished Castlevania Season 4. It was great. Fantastic action and good story. Hope you and Rob watched the final season of Castlevania." I did watch the final season of Castlevania. Pull out these earphones now. I did watch the final season of Castlevania. I liked it. It's the same things that I've loved about Castlevania since Season 1. Same things that I think are a little bit weak about it. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty fun. The whole, well, I don't want to give away the ending. But the thing with Dracula was pretty cool. Without giving anything away. The little postscript, post-credit thing was pretty cool. Anyway, yes, I did watch it. I enjoyed it. And, let's see what they do with Season 5. There were some discussions that 4 would be it, but I don't think it will be. Anyway, next up. Cutter Hale writes, "This weekend I saw Army of the Dead and Those Who Wish Me Dead both at the theater. Army of the Dead was fun, could have been shorter, but loved the zombie twist. My favorite movie of the year so far was Nobody. I've seen it 6 times in theaters, but that changed after I saw Those Who Wish Me Dead tonight. I love this movie. I was hooked from the start to finish. The writing was great as always. The acting was great and had action and tension. A lady in my theater told me that she hates Angelina Jolie, and she thinks this was Jolie's best movie. The song that they played at the end had me crying. I love this movie. Best of the year so far. Did you get to see For Those Who Wish Me Dead? If so, love your thoughts. I've been watching you since I was a kid, 3 out of 3. Well, thank you so much for that, Cutter Hale. And yeah, I talked about it a little bit earlier. I did not love For Those Who Wish Me Dead. I didn't love it. I thought the performances were great. I thought the basic premise of the movie was very solid. And I liked the movie. I like it. Like in a thumbs up or thumbs down world, I'm a thumbs up. It's a thumbs up from me. I enjoyed it, but I did have several issues with the script. I I thought several things were far too convenient and far too coincidental, and the little plot holes were significant. It's like, wait a minute, that guy wouldn't do that, and that guy, to me, I think it's the weakest of the Tyler Sheridan movies. Again, not a bad film, but I thought Jolie was great. I thought Bernthal was great. I thought Nicholas Hoult was great. I thought Littlefinger was great. I keep forgetting the actor who played Littlefinger, but I really like him. I thought he was great, but overall, didn't love the movie. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I was just expecting better from Tyler Sheridan. All right, thanks for that, Cutter. I'm glad you enjoyed it that much, though, man. I'm glad you did. All right, Timothy writes, John, I just watched Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, and I'm floored. This film is incredible. Have you seen it? And if so, what are your thoughts? If you haven't, please make time to watch it. It's only an hour and a half, and it leaves HBO Max soon. I'm sure I'm thinking of a different movie. What's it called again? Rarely, sometimes, always, never. All right. Which one is this again? It is the one. Who is in this one? I have not watched it. No, I have not watched this one. And this one has who? Who is in the cast? I don't see it. Anyway, no, I'm not familiar with it. What does it have? It's got a 99% though on Rotten Tomatoes. That's pretty good. It's got a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, I am not familiar with it. I probably won't watch it, to be honest with you, unless I get like a lot more people telling me, because I just don't have the time for it. But thank you for putting that on my radar. And if I hear from more people, Timothy, maybe I'll give it a shot. All right, next up, Starfish writes, hey, John, going to try the ancient Rome TV series Domina about Octavius's wife, Livia. Fascinated about that period. It's got mixed reviews, so it could be awful, but it does star Liam Cunningham. So who knows? We'll find out this evening. Will you be trying it? I've heard about it like once or twice, so probably not. Even though I am normally a sucker for like anything ancient Roman. I don't know if it's the Italian in me, but no, I'm not really sure about that. Okay, next up. Let's see. The Wakandan Forever writes, she's a small wonder, a girl unlike other girls. She's a miracle, and I grant you, she'll enchant you at first sight. She's small wonder. She'll bring love and laughter everywhere. One of my favorite shows growing up. Who's your favorite humanoid robot? I don't even know who we're talking about. I have no idea what it is we're talking about, Wakandan Forever. Not the slightest clue. Who is my favorite humanoid robot? It would probably have to be the one from The Last Starfighter. The one who goes to replace him in the park. I think Zeta or Beta. Beta, that's his name. He's a Beta unit. So yes, Beta. My favorite humanoid robot in any movie is probably Beta from The Last Starfighter. I just really like that character a lot. So I'd say that is my favorite. Thanks, Wakandan. All right, next up, another Skywalker writes in and tips in $200. Another Skywalker. Thank you so much for supporting our channel on that level, man. Seriously, thank you so much. We appreciate that a lot. He writes, hey, John, I don't have a specific question. I just wanted to say I appreciate what you do and the escape you provide from pressures of our everyday lives. Keep up the great work. Oh, man, thank you so much. First of all, not only did you support our channel on a massive level like that, and again, seriously, thank you so much for that, but you sent it in just to say you appreciate our show. Dude, that means a lot to us. And whenever you guys just send in stuff like that, especially when you take time out of your day to write in encouraging and supporting words, that means a lot to us around here. So yeah, man, again, another Skywalker, thank you so much. And you've been a very active supporter of our show for a long time. So thank you so much for that, man. Very, very much. All right. Next up. Jay Bling writes, regarding moving big couches upstairs, pivot, it's a Friends reference. Okay, Friends. I knew it. I had Seinfeld in my head. But I knew it was one of those like major era 80s, 90s sitcom moments. I knew it was that. A pivot. Okay. Thank you, Jay Bling, for writing back in to give me an update on that. That's right. All right. Next up, Alan writes, hey, John, one scene that gives me chills is Andrew Garfield in Hacksaw Ridge. Every moment of Hacksaw Ridge gives me chills. When he is being led to medical tent by Worthington's character after being asked if he is wounded. You could see everyone's opinion of changing. What are some that, I don't know what it is you're asking, Alan. You could see everyone's opinions of changing. What are some that do it for you? I don't know what you're asking. Let me just read it one more time. You could see everyone's opinion of changing. What are some that do it for you? Again, sorry, dude. I don't know what it is, what you're asking, but I will say this. Hacksaw Ridge was phenomenal. Like an absolutely visceral, emotional, spiritually uplifting, phenomenal movie. It's just so damn good. I remember going in there not really knowing what to expect. You know, it's directed by Mel Gibson. So you never know like what's going on with all the distractions and turmoil surrounding Gibson and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't know what we were going to get. Vince Vaughn is in it as well. Vince Vaughn kills it in that movie. And I would have been perfectly fine. I kid you not. I would have been perfectly fine if it won Best Picture of the Year that year. It wasn't my pick, but I thought that movie was so good that if it did win Best Picture that year, I would have been totally good with it. I thought it was fantastic. I love that movie, Alan. I wish more people would talk about it too. All right. Thanks for that, dude. Next up. Ryan G writes, "Hey John, if Rob is there, just missed him. This question is for him. What's a better DC TV show? Titans, Legends of Tomorrow, or Doom Patrol?" That's easy, Doom Patrol. Can you ask him if he's not there, or can you take the answer since he's not here? Oh yeah, that's easy. Doom Patrol is by far the best show that they've done. But it's not. Now it's going to be an HBO Max show. It used to be for the DC streaming service. Now it's on HBO Max. Doom Patrol is like one of the top flight shows to me. Like the top flight shows to me are The Boys, Umbrella Academy, Doom Patrol, in no particular order. To me, those three shows are the gold standard right now of any superhero shows. That includes WandaVision. That includes Titans. That includes anything on the CW. That includes whatever. I really do think those three shows, Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy, and The Boys, are the triumphant of the gold standard of what's out there right now. So, and I didn't think Titans was very good at all. I've always been very medium on Legends of Tomorrow, but Doom Patrol is phenomenal. Absolutely. I love Doom Patrol so much. All right. And Al Renshaw sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thanks, Al. All right. Let's keep going here. Let's see. Ryan G also writes, "John, the last movie I saw in the theaters was with my dad seeing Disney's Onward. That was one of the last ones me and Ann went. I think that might have been the last movie Ann and I saw together in theaters before theater shut down was Onward. Anyway, it was so good. I loved Onward. It was so good because when he was young, he lost his dad and baby brother. So it felt heart to us seeing the movie, but we did not cry. It was just so sad. Yeah, listen, I remember, first of all, I loved Onward because the whole movie is a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. And you know, Ann and I are both into D&D. So the whole movie is a big Dungeons and Dragons adventure. But it was also about a couple of dudes who have lost their dad. And that was very special to us because my wife's dad, my father-in-law, just passed away a couple of years ago. He was a very good man and a great father who brought his family. He's the traditional immigrant story. He brought his family over from the Philippines to give his kids different opportunities for a bigger and better life. And that's why he brought his family over, all that kind of stuff. And my wife, Ann, loved her dad. And when he died, it was not unexpected. He had been having major health issues. We knew it was touch and go with him for a while, but she lost her dad. And watching Onward with my wife, I had to hold her like half of the movie because every time she was loving the movie, But every time I would look over, whenever they started talking about their dad or how special their dad was in the movie, like I knew I'm going to look at Anne right now and she's going to be crying. And I looked over and like most of the movie, Anne was just in tears. She was loving the movie, loving it, but a lot of tears. And I just have my arm around her and for it. And it's beautifully done. And maybe like any other movie, your experience with the movie will depend on your own personal experiences that you've had. But man, I'm telling you, as somebody who was a big D&D guy and my wife had just lost her father and being in there with that, it was a very powerful experience watching that movie. Not one of the best movies they've ever done, but it was truly a good movie and I enjoyed it a lot. All right, next up. Let's see. Thanks for that, Ryan. And Ryan tipped in like $20 on that. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that, dude. All right, next up. Ben Rayner writes, hi, John. I hope you had a great weekend. I did. I had a fantastic weekend, man. Spent it with family. It was really, really good. I was watching your companion video and that question about Superman and Lois, and you commented on Lana's actress. Did you know she played Sloane on Entourage, E's on and off girlfriend, and Cumco Trivia? Also watched Buried with Ryan Reynolds. Nice, because you keep talking about it and you're right. That movie is fantastic. Incredible acting by Ryan and levels I didn't know that he had. That ending got me. Love this movie. 8.5 out of 10. Thank you. And bring on the filthy. All right. So I did not know. I remember watching Superman and Lois. Hold a second. Let me bring this up here. So Superman and Lois cast. So Superman and Lois comes on, right? And I'm like, who is this girl playing Lana? I know this girl. I know this girl. Who's this girl playing Lana? I kept asking myself, who is she? And at first I thought it was Nina Dobrev. For a split second, I thought it was Nina Dobrev, the girl who used to be in, what was that show? It's the vampire show she was in. Vampire Diaries. That was it. So I used to think, because I totally recognize this girl. And at first I thought it was Nina Dobrev, but I kept looking at her. It's like, no. It's not Nina Dobrev. But who is it? And then somebody yesterday wrote to me and said, oh, she played Sloane in Entourage. And I'm like, that's who it was. That's why she looks so damn familiar to me. It was her. Yes, so she was Sloane. My God, she's beautiful. I mean, I remember watching, when I would watch Entourage, I'm like, there's no way E could get a girl like that. Like, that would mean she was smart, successful, ambitious, sexy. Anyway, yeah, and she is great on Superman and Lois. I'm loving her as Lana Lang in that show. There's a lot I'm liking about that show. But yes, that's who she is. She was Sloane in there. It's a really good one. All right, next up. Ben Rayner also right. And then you watch Buried. Yeah, I've been telling people about Buried for years, man. If you want to see how good of an actor Ryan Reynolds is, watch Buried. Without exaggeration, he should have gotten an Academy Award nomination for that movie. Straight up. He absolutely should have gotten an Academy Award nomination for that movie. If you want to see just how good this dude is, go and watch that movie. Because whenever somebody gets into an argument, I don't think Ryan Reynolds is actually all that good of an actor. The first question I'll ask is, have you seen Buried? And they'll always say no. I say, go watch Buried and then let's have this conversation again. Because seriously, it is a revelation of a movie to see just how talented Ryan Reynolds is. Glad you saw it, Ben. All right, Caleb writes, what exactly did Chapek do in Disney parks that was so bad? I knew he ran the vault and I hated him for it, but I'm not too familiar with the park side. What were the hardcore Parks fans upset about? You know what? I don't know. I just remember when they announced Chapek was going to be the new CEO, all I know is that I had a whole ton of Disney park hardcore fans write into me to say, this is disastrous. And I am not a hardcore parks guy, so I've never really known what their issue is. All I know is, like all the Disney parks fans hated that he became the new CEO of Disney. I don't understand why. I don't know what the specific issues are. I am not somebody who pays a lot of close attention to, the parks business side of Disney. I obviously concern myself more with the movie division and stuff like that. So I didn't know. And I still don't know, but man, they are mad about it. They were mad about it. So any of you guys who were one of those hardcore Disney parks fans, And what, if you could jump into the comments section below and just kind of explain out, what it was that you guys were so concerned about when it came to Chapek, because I've never really known myself, but obviously there's some stuff there that made them all like very, very upset. Anyway, so your question is the same one I've been asking, Caleb. All right, next up. Willie Todd writes, or Wiley Todd writes, "Hey John, I was wondering your thought on the new Halo show that's coming out on Paramount Plus. Have you played the games? It's great to see something out of this fantastic franchise with great story and fans. Hopefully we can see Red versus Blue movie as well." I think Red versus Blue is dead. I don't think we're going to see that, but I mean, I know the guys are still around. I'm just saying. No matter how good it is, it's too late. Like a Halo franchise, whether it's a movie or a series coming to Paramount, this is something that should have been on screens literally 10 years ago. It should have been on screen 10 years ago or more. And I remember remember back when Peter Jackson was going to direct a Halo movie? Let me see if I can find this. Let me see if I can just find this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this or not. Yeah, I can't find it. I was going to try to find this old article that I wrote on the movie blog about Halo, and I can't find it, but I mean, that was supposed to happen, but then Peter Jackson refused to direct it himself, which is what the studios behind it wanted Peter Jackson to direct. Peter Jackson's like, no, I know this kid, Neil Blomkamp. I want him to direct. But Neil Blomkamp had never directed anything at that time. He had never even been like an assistant director. He's never done anything on any actual real movie. And so the studios got really concerned, and the studios pulled their support, and then they weren't going to finance it anymore. And then it's just been in limbo for like ever. Limbo forever. So I am very curious to see how this whole Halo thing works itself out. Again, I don't know if it's going to be great or not. I think maybe the time might have passed for it to hit its peak popularity, but I don't know. Listen, all we can do is hope that it's great. And Paramount's taking their network and their stuff, their content very, very seriously. So let's see how it all pans out. All right, next up. Lexi Forbes writes, "John, I want to bring you back to 2012, 2013. How excited were you when you first heard that your favorite actor, Russell Crowe, was cast as Jor-El?" Oh, huge. I was very, very happy about that. Again, Russell Crowe has been my favorite actor for a very, very long time. I think the dude's incredible. I think Daniel Day-Lewis is the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time, but Russell Crowe's my favorite. I love Superman. Finding out Russell Crowe was going to be in a Superman movie was very, very exciting for me. My hot toy, one of the few hot toys I have, is Russell Crowe as Jor-El from that. Of course, so yeah, pretty damn excited, Lexi. Pretty damn excited. All right, next up. Carl Wolf writes, "Variety reports that AT&T will merge Discovery, HBO, and Warner. What does that mean for Discovery Plus and HBO Max?" Well, obviously, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Warner Brothers has divested itself. At least they've made the agreement to. Warner Brothers, or AT&T, is divesting itself of Warner Brothers. They are no longer going to be owning WarnerMedia. Discovery is now going to take WarnerMedia. They've paid $43 billion to AT&T to do this. And now Discovery and WarnerMedia are going to merge and create one brand new company. 71% of the new shareholders of this brand new company will be AT&T shareholders, not AT&T, the company, the shareholders, and the remaining 29% are going to be former Discovery shareholders. And now together, they are the collective shareholders of this brand new company. AT&T no longer has anything to do with it, and all that repercussion stuff Rob and I spent about 40 minutes earlier talking about that, so I'll refer you back to that. All right, next up. Thanks for that, Carl. Next up, Johnny Winner writes, "I wonder if Matt Reeves will have his Batman kill in the movie. We haven't seen Batman doesn't kill anybody since Batman and Robin. Also, who's Richard Grayson? There's Dick, Jason, Tim, Damian is my favorite. There was a Black Robin recently. Is that him? Well, Richard is Dick. Dick is short for Richard. in the thing. If you look at it, Dick Grayson's full name is Richard Grayson. So that's who it is. Just so you know about that. Yeah, listen, and again, my buddy Rodney was like the biggest Tim Drake fan. I mean, he loved the Tim Drake Robin. He had we were roommates for a while, and he had he would always have the Robin issues around all over the place. I thought the Damian Wayne twist on Robin with, his son and all that kind of stuff, that was interesting. But yeah, my favorite has always been Richard. It's always been Dick Grayson, man. Always been Dick Grayson. All right, next up. LT Big Dog writes, one of two. You have balls of steel, Campea. The big discussion that you and Rob shared about the management at Disney was fantastic. But now that you've criticized the mouse, be careful. Those in the industry know that they are assassins. Look at this deal with Warner Brothers and how they are waving the white flag. Talk is cheap in Hollywood, and it looks like the corporates at Disney can point to their $315 billion market value and say, who the fuck cares about those creatives? We are the business makers who rule. Yeah, but here's the thing. And first of all, let me be very clear about something. No studio, not Warner Brothers, not Paramount, not Sony, not Disney, not Lionsgate, none of them. No studio has ever gotten in touch with me for being critical about something that they do or have done. Now, I have had studios reach out to me when I have to clarify something that I might have accidentally misrepresented. And I have received an angry email or two from a studio when I totally accidentally broke embargo on something, and I put up a review too early and I didn't realize I had done it. And so they were totally justified to get in touch with me and be pretty pissed. And they were totally right to do that because I broke an embargo. Moron. It was totally accidental, but they were totally right to be mad at me for that. But other than that, I have never once had any studio, whether I've gone off on something that Disney has done or something that Warner Brothers has done or something that whatever, I've got friends and good relationships with people at all of these studios. And even when I'm very critical, they know, because they know my job is to give my commentary and opinion on things going on in the entertainment world. And that means if they're going to love it and be happy when I love something that they do, like whether I love the Avengers or love Man of Steel or love Top Gun or whatever, they know that when I love something, I'm going to be heaping praise on it. But they all know that if I don't like something, I'm going to be very vocal about not liking what I see. And they know that, and they don't expect any less from me. They're professionals, and so it doesn't change anything. See, a lot of people think, if you don't say that Paramount is great, Paramount's not going to let... No. The Paramount people are professionals. They know our job as either pundits or some as journalists or critics. Our jobs is to give our opinions, and they expect us to do nothing less. Try to be fair as you're giving the opinion, but if it's super negative, then it's super negative. That doesn't affect our working relationship with them at all. Any more than being super positive doesn't get you anything either. See, a bunch of people think that, if journalists say something positive about that company, they're going to get special. No, they don't. No, they don't. Not really. So it is what it is, but I have never, ever, to all of the studios' credits, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Sony, Disney, all of them, I have never gotten pushback from any of them for my opinion about anything. And we continue to do business together, and we will moving forward. And I'm going to give my opinion, positive or negative, on things, and they know that. But anyway, yeah, there's just that. Okay, next up. We've got... also, this tidbit should give you, Rob, and the movie community a major hard-on. Zaslav has Hollywood ties. He is close to Spielberg and other power players. Recently bought the home of Robert Evans. Yes, looks like the kid is going to stay in the picture. Oh, yeah, he is going to be the head CEO. He's going to run this new company. The guy who was the head of Discovery, who has led them to incredible success for this small little outlet, something I never thought would work. And he has steered it to incredible success. He is very closely tied with a lot of people in Hollywood. He knows how to run an entertainment industry. He knows how to formulate good relationships with his creators, which has been one of the hallmarks of what he's done over at Disney, which is something that Jason Kilar at WarnerMedia has done a terrible job of over the years. So this could be very good for them. It might be a disaster, but it could be very good for them. We'll see how that goes. All right. Next up. BK Dan writes, John, do you think / believe that Disney Plus Premier Access will continue after 2021? I ask knowing that you know more sometimes compared to what you volunteer. Listen, they're going to experiment with this a few more times. Remember, after they did the Mulan experiment with the Premier Access thing, and it was a complete, unabashed failure. That Premier Access thing they did with Mulan was a major, major failure by every analytic. We said at the time, they're not done. You can't, like, when you're talking about trying to formulate what the entire future of what you're going to do is, you have to have more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 sample size. I think they're going to do 10, 15, 20 movies like this. Which ones, we're not really sure yet. We know of a couple that are coming. But we got to see if they continue to get the same results that Mulan did and that Raya did, because they didn't do great for them. Despite what you might hear, they did not do great for them. Or will it turn into a bounding success? The thing is, they don't have a big enough sample size yet. So I can't even take a guess right now. What I do think is this. I think some of their movies getting Premier Access on Disney Plus is probably going to be some sort of a regular thing. 5% of their movies doing it, 15% of their movies doing it, 30% of their movies doing it, 2% of their movies doing it. That I don't know. We'll have to see how the next 4 or 5 movies that they test out with it start to perform. If they continue to fail like the previous ones did, it won't last long. But if they start to show big growth and improvement, it might become more of a standard. So we'll see how that goes. All right, good question, man. Next up, Omar Darwish writes, hey, John, wondering if you've heard of the comic run going on right now, The Last Ronin. I have, yes. It's a bloody R-rated story following the last surviving Ninja Turtle seeking revenge after his 3 brothers and Splinter have all been brutally killed, reminiscent of the original. Yeah, I have not read it. I have not looked at it. You guys know that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to me are a disgrace, even though I really like a couple of movies. But like the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were not pizza eating, skateboard riding, cowabunga dude idiots. The original, if you go back to the original comic books of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it was dark, it was violent, it was serious, it was awesome. I'm not a big fan, even though I got to admit, like a couple of the movies I have really enjoyed. I'm not going to lie, but I want to see a true remake of the real Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's what I want to see. And yeah, that does sound like it gets back to what the original roots of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are, but I haven't read it myself. All right, next up. Brent B writes, I know we're running overtime, guys, but you know what? We're going to go long today. We're going to go a little bit long today. So let's keep going for a few more minutes, shall we? Brent B writes, I've worn my mask since the start of the pandemic, and now I'm completely vaccinated. Good on you, man. With the CDC allowing people to be maskless, this weekend I went to 2 restaurants and Walmart with no mask on. It felt so strange. Can't wait to go to movies now. Yeah, listen, I am fully vaccinated, and I'm going to tell you what, I still wear my mask when I go out. Not because I need protecting. Because I'm fully vaccinated, I'm good. I wear a mask now when I still go out in public because I want other people to feel comfortable. We live in an increasingly, and I'm not saying everybody needs to do this. Not at all. It all depends on the areas you live in and the things that you do and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. But I want, as people are now, we're trying to get everything back to normal. People are now venturing out, going to restaurants, going to the movies and stuff like that. I still recognize we are not out of this pandemic yet. And so me personally, I make the decision. First of all, a lot of places we go to still require you to wear a mask inside. Like, it doesn't matter what the CDC thing is. Like, Ann and I just went to a restaurant, but like, Yeah, but when you go in, you don't have to have your mask on while you're eating your meal. But when you go in, you're still required to wear your mask as you go in. It gets taken to your seat and all that kind of stuff. I still will wear my mask when I go out because I don't ever want to be somebody. I want people to get back in the habit of going out. And if me wearing a mask is going to help other people feel more comfortable, being at that restaurant or being at that shopping center or being at that movie or whatever, if that is going to help other people feel more comfortable and get back into the process of getting back to normal again, then I've got no problem wearing a mask for a while. I mean, for fuck's sakes, there are men and women who fight and die for their country. Fight and die, leave their families behind, go off overseas, serve their country. Some fight, some die. And fucking Giblets McDaniel can't be fucking bothered to put a mask on when he goes out to help his country out. I don't know. Again, I it's just something that befuddles me and whatever. But hey, listen, if it's all part of the process of getting us back to the place where we're getting back to normal, where pretty soon we can put all this behind us. If that means wearing my mask a little bit longer, hell with it. I'll wear my mask a little bit longer. I know. It is a crime against humanity itself that my drop dead effing Italian sexiness should be covered in any way, shape, or form to the needy public around there who need to see my glorious face. But it's the little sacrifices we all must make, my friends. It's the little sacrifices we all must make. And if that's the sacrifice we need to make right now, then that's the sacrifice we need to make right now. Anyway, I'm not telling anybody else how to think. It is not my intention to tell anybody else how to think. But you're asking me, so I will tell you how I think and why I do the things that I do. That is not me telling you how you're supposed to conduct yourself or handle yourself in any way, shape, or form. I'm just telling you how I think and kind of my approach to it. That's all. But damn, look at me. Holy shit, I am sexy. Anyway, next up. I know you're all thinking it. You're all thinking it. Well, so I might as well be the one to say it. Right? I'm just saying what y'all are thinking. Obviously, right? Okay, next up. John Campea OnlyFans coming soon. All right, next up. Thanks for writing that in, Brett. And it is great to start to be able to see things starting to get back to normal, man. It really is. All right, next up. Brandon also writes, I know you're tired of hearing about it, but it needs to be asked. With WarnerMedia and Discovery merging and WarnerMedia being spun off into another company with a new CEO, how do you think this will affect the chances of the Snyderverse continuing? 0. Listen, the Snyderverse was a failed experiment. But John, it doesn't matter if I like him. It doesn't matter if I like him. I mean, listen, one of the reasons Jason Kilar is losing his job as the head of WarnerMedia is because he greenlit the Justice League Snyder Cut in the first place, and they wasted tens of millions of dollars. I won't tell you how I know that, but everybody in the industry knows that. They are not going back to it. The head of Discovery sees what works and sees what does not work, and he's not about to go back to what didn't work. So no, I don't think we're going to see any kind of return of Snyderverse whatsoever moving forward. Now, listen, there are things that have happened in Snyderverse that other filmmakers can continue on. Like I'm still sitting, you guys know, I think Man of Steel is one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. It's the most underrated comic book movie of all time. It is a masterpiece of the genre. There is still a possibility that we could get a Man of Steel 2. And those things could be continued on, but a return to Snyderverse when they've tried it several times, it never worked the way they wanted it to work. I don't ever see them going back to it. Never say never, but my guess right now, if you're asking me to ask right now, is probably not. And listen, I know that's not what some people want to hear, but I'm just giving my honest opinion, and maybe it'll turn out that way. Maybe it won't, but you're asking me my opinion. I'm giving you my opinion. All right, next up. The Sock writes, just binge Superman and Lois. I love how much Jordan and Jonathan truly care for each other. Like when Jonathan was drunk and Jordan took care of him. That was very touching. Also, it felt so satisfying that Jordan got to play football. I don't know why. You know what? That was a really good, interesting dilemma. Now, for those of you who don't know, in Superman and Lois, they've got a son named Jordan, who's kind of more, they got the super athletic son, Jonathan, who has no superpowers, but they've got this socially awkward son, Jordan. And he is they've realized he's got some of his dad's powers. And so there's this really interesting, it seems like a little fluff thing, but honestly, I found it fascinating as a viewer asking myself this question: what should they do? Because they're struggling with, should they allow their son Jordan, who's never been able to fit in socially and all that kind of stuff, should they allow him to play football? Even though it's fundamentally unfair because nobody else knows he has superpowers. He has super strength. He has kind of super speed. He is obviously much stronger than everybody else. And Superman and Lois wrestling with the question of, should they allow their son to play football? Is that fair? Is it right? Now, in the show, they decide to let him play football because it lets him feel like he belongs. It gives him it gives him a sense of a place in the social structure of high school, something he's never felt before. It's allowed him to make new friends. But at the same time, it poses an interesting philosophical question. Is it right? Because now he's a starter on a football team, and some other kid who would have been a starter doesn't get to be a starter now because he doesn't have superpowers. Only nobody knows that Jordan has superpowers. It's a really interesting dilemma. And I find it's little things like that, the verisimilitude, as Rob would say, of little situations like that. It's like, is it morally right that they let their kid who has superpowers play football and have this clearly unfair advantage over all the other kids playing? Or do the benefits of the fact that it lets this kid have a sense of belonging finally experience that? It's a really good question. And it's one that made me, look, they've just done a great job with this Superman and Lois show. They really, really have. Anyway, next up. The Sock also writes, also, I binged Death and Robots, and I really love the stories. Interesting. I love Death and Robots, but I think they really could benefit from being longer, even if it were just another 15 minutes. Yeah, I have never watched Love, Death, and Robots. I just remember when season 1 was coming, I watched a few minutes of some previews, and then I watched the trailers for it, and it just never interested me. So let's be clear. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not at all saying it's bad. I'm just saying I haven't watched it just because it never really looked interesting to me. But I know Rob watches it, Sock. Rob watches Love, Death, and Robots, and I know he enjoys it quite a bit. I know a number of people who really like it, so you're probably in really good company there. All right, next up. We got Kevin M. King, who writes, what's up, John? Love your show. Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate that, man. I've been with you since the movie blog closet days. Anyway, I agree with you on your stance about ethnic changing in comic book movies. However, one point that I think is ignored: why not introduce the cool black or Asian characters that already exist in the MCU or DCEU? You're a comic book guy. Any recommendations? I want to see the Blue Marvel, especially his conversation with JFK. By the way, I'm really not too sure how to do the 1 out of 2 thing on the tip page. Thanks. All you got to do is at the beginning of your thing, put 1 of 2. But anyway, yeah, that's often a big question. Look, when it comes down to the whole ethnic question about, black Superman, all that kind of stuff, I still have this day have not heard one legitimate, valid argument about why they shouldn't try doing a Superman movie with a black Superman. I haven't heard one legitimate reason why they shouldn't do it. Not one. Now, it's not what I would do. I'm just being open and transparent about that. I am more of a traditionalist. If I was running that situation and that project, I would probably stick, because I'm more of a traditionalist, I would probably stick with a white Superman. But there's not a single legitimate, valid reason why they shouldn't be free to try one with a black Superman. Go for it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Who cares? And if it works, great. We got a new, great, fun movie with kind of a different take. But I haven't heard one legitimate reason why they shouldn't do it. Now, what does get brought up a lot, but it's a secondary discussion, is why don't they do more movies? Forget the Superman situation. Why don't they do more movies with some of the existing comic book characters like Blue Marvel or others? I think there's a Filipino superhero now. I think it's called Typhoon. I think is that the name of the Filipino girl, the superhero Filipino girl, Typhoon, I think. Anyway. So, and there are many others. Why not do those? Well, I think because of the same reason why a lot of lesser known characters don't get made, because I think they're just worried, whether they're white, Asian, black, Native American, whatever. I think they're just worried that they're just not recognizable enough. They don't have a brand name that goes with them. They don't know that they can make something successful or not. And maybe if we start to see more representation in movies, maybe that will down the road open the door for more of these things. Like, for example, once you do Black Panther opens the doors for a lot of things too. And maybe if they can get more representation in those movies, they'll see it as a bigger opportunity. Because you know me, I've always wanted to see a Bishop movie. Bishop is not my favorite comic book character. Magneto is my favorite comic book character, but I have always been fascinated with the Bishop character. I love Bishop. And I always thought a Bishop movie, understanding his history, would be fantastic. And maybe it'll open up to that. Maybe they'll open up to it. So I don't know. We'll see where they go. We'll see where they go with it. All right, next up. Let's see. Next up is Kevin M. King writes, do you think we'll ever go back to the day when movies were just good? Just a good time at the theater. I watched Spiral this weekend, and after hearing all the trash talk about the movie, I expected a disaster, but I had a good time. Your thoughts? Well, here's the thing, Kevin. You had a good time. That's great. But other people didn't. That's the subjectivity of film, right? You may watch something and not think it's very good, but a lot of other people may think it's fantastic. Like me, I always go back to Blade Runner. I'm not a fan of the original Blade Runner. I recognize and acknowledge most people love it and hail it as a big all-time classic, and sure, that its place in history can't be questioned. But I don't actually personally think it's all that good. I thought the second Blade Runner that Denis Villeneuve did was far superior, but that's just me because all film is subjective. So you may have watched it and you thought it was good, and that's great. But that doesn't mean you're right. It also doesn't mean the people who disliked it aren't right. It just means that you watched it and you liked it, but a lot of other people did and they didn't. And so, like, when you ask the question, we ever get back to the point when a movie can just be good? Well, here's the problem, Kevin and King. There's a lot of people who did watch Spiral and didn't think it was just good. They thought it was just bad. And then there are other people who thought it was quite good. But that is the beautiful thing about movies, man. The beautiful thing about movies is that it's art. And as art, it hits us all in different ways. And we have different experiences with that art. And that when that art hits us, it elicits different reactions from us. And that's not something, there are a whole bunch of people who get worried about that. Oh, no. The subjectivity of art is the most beautiful thing about art. That's the best thing about it. Because what fun is there in discussing art if we all have the same experience with it, right? That's just kind of my take on it. All right. Thanks for writing that in, man. And I'm glad you enjoyed that movie, dude. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I haven't seen it yet myself. I only had time to watch a couple this weekend. I wasn't able to see Spiral yet. All right. Joel C81 writes, good day, John. How's droning going? I haven't done a lot of droning. I got this great drone and bought me this great DJI drone. And when you understand, like, my backyard goes over into complete wilderness. I love playing with my drone, but I haven't done it much lately. I need to get back on it. Anyway, have you gotten to use it yet? I love my Mavic, but the new FPV looks like so much fun. Again, I haven't used it nearly enough. I'm going to start using it more though. Ann and I were actually talking about that last night because we're getting ready to set up like a movie screen in our backyard, so we can be in the jacuzzi and watch a movie at the same time. That's what we're going to try to do at any rate. See if we can cobble together some way to make that happen. But we were talking yesterday about it. I need to start using my drone more because the weather's a little bit better for it now, and I am going to try it a little bit more. All right, next up. We've got, hold on a second. Okay. Choose to be anonymous. Tips in like $50. Thank you, Choose to be Anonymous. I appreciate that very much, man. Thanks for supporting our channel on that level. And Choose to be Anonymous writes in, love you, John. Thank you for what you do. Your work makes me really happy, and I have something to look forward to watching in my day-to-day life. Love. Oh, thanks, man. Again, it's always so nice when people want to just send in something to support the show and not even want anything back for it, just to say, hey man, we appreciate the show. Dude, you have no idea how much that means to me and how good that makes me feel when folks like you or another Skywalker or whoever else, when all of you guys tip in and support the channel. That's how this channel, this network exists, guys. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that very, very much. All right. Dan FX writes, love the show. Thank you so much. Guys, did you see the newest Castlevania? Oh my God, Netflix is 2 for 2 these past few weeks with Mitchells versus the Machines, which was insanely good. Yeah, I was a little bit late to the Mitchells versus the Machines party, but I really enjoyed Mitchells versus the Machines. It was Pixarian. That is high praise for a Sony animation movie. It was Pixarian. It really had the heart and the humor, and it was just a really, really good time. And yeah, I enjoyed Castlevania season 4. I mean, I don't super love Castlevania. It does a few things that are a little bit schlocky, but overall it's a fun watch. And I know there's a part in Castlevania 4 when, I'm not going to give anything away, but like when 3 certain characters get together, my wife Ann loves Castlevania. And when they came together on screen, my wife was like, woo! Like she was like bouncing up and down on the couch. She was so excited about it. Anyway, thanks for that, Dan FX. All right, next up. The Hoser and the Knob writes, with the theatrical window trimmed to 45 days, what kind of effect will we see on the marketing side of films? What changes could we see happen to try and spur up more theatrical viewers in the smaller window? Thanks, and continue bringing on the filthy. Okay, so that's a good question. And this, I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is one of the reasons why, while I personally would have set the new window at 60 days, why I still think 45 days is okay. Because over the past number of years, the viewing habits of audiences have changed. It used to be, back in the olden days, there used to be a time when a movie could be in theaters, like not even terribly long ago, like go back to My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Like if you go back to like a movie like the original My Big Fat Greek Wedding, that is a movie that could come out and it could hang around in theaters for 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks, right? But over the years, movie-going audiences' viewing habits have changed. More and more every year, people who go to see a movie see it earlier and earlier in its release. To the point that after 3 weeks in the theater, a movie, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, you know, we see a 50 to 60% drop from weekend 1 to weekend 2, another 50 to 60 to 70% drop from weekend 2 to weekend 3, and so on and so forth. The habits of the viewers have been to see movies now earlier and earlier and earlier in their theatrical run. It is very uncommon for people, it's not like there's none of them, but it's uncommon now for a lot of people to see a movie for the first time in its 5th or 6th weekend of release. There obviously are people who still do it. I'm just saying it's a much smaller number. And since that window has closed and gotten smaller and smaller and smaller for how quickly people go to see a movie, what it ultimately means is that I think they can make this theatrical window move from 90 days to 45. And even though it's a little bit tight, I actually don't think it's going to make that big of a difference, because most people will see that movie in theaters in its first 30 days. Like when they go see it, they'll see it on week 1, week 2, or week 3. That's where the vast majority of the money is made. And so I think they're probably they're going to stick with that. So how will it affect the marketing? I don't think much, because marketing over the last few years has been putting a bigger and bigger emphasis on getting that first weekend box office. And since that plays well into a 45-day window, I think you're just going to see it play into that even more. I think you're going to see that emphasis on getting as many people as possible to that first and second weekend box office. They're already doing it that way. I think they're just going to continue doing that way. So, but it's going to be a good situation to keep our eyes on as they move forward. All right. Last question of the day, guys. Then we got to wrap it up. We've gone for 2.5 hours here today. Sam Fisher writes, I don't have HBO Max, but I do have Discovery Plus. Will they jack up the price of Discovery Plus and join it with HBO Max in a bundle like Disney did with Disney Plus and Hulu and ESPN? I like Discovery Plus because of how cheap it is. $15 a month for HBO Max is too expensive for me. That's going to be a good question. What is this new company going to do? I personally am guessing that they are going to merge in all the content into one streaming company. Now, I have no information that backs that up. Let's be clear. That is just me speculating. But yeah, I think their approach is going to be to, and whatever this new company is going to be called, Discover HBO or Warner Covery or Diswarner Covery HBO Supersize Penis Max Deluxe Comic Reviews .fart. I mean, I don't know what they're going to call it. But my guess, and it's just a guess, I believe they will make one mega streaming service that will carry all of the HBO Max stuff and all of the Discovery stuff. They're going to give us the Green Lantern, and they're going to give us Property Brothers, and they're going to give us Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and it's going to be all part of one thing. Now, yes, the other thing that could happen is that they could just keep HBO Max and just keep Discovery Plus and have both of these sub things under the new company that owns them both, and do some kind of package deal where for $17 a month, you get both HBO Max and Discovery. I mean, I don't know. They could do it that way. My guess, and it's just pure speculation on my part, is that they're going to make one mega streaming service. And I don't feel a great deal of conviction about that. Like, they very well may not. But I'm guessing that's what they're going to do. So we'll see. All right, I said that was the last question, but let's take one more. Comes to us from Let's Make Things Dark writes, in Citizen Kane, young Jedediah looks related to John Cena, as well as young Susan Alexander looks like Isla Fisher. I have never thought about that. I will have to go back and take a look at that, to be honest. But if he looks like John Cena, then how do you see him on screen? Get it? That was probably a bad one. All right, let's do one more. Amanda Hugekins writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here right now. What do you think of these names for the new company name, or at least streaming name? Warner Brothers Premium, Disner, or my personal favorite, Warcovery? Oh, Warcovery is nice. Warner Brothers Premium. Look, in all seriousness though, Amanda, Rob and I have talked a lot about that. We've always felt like HBO Max was the wrong name for that service. Yes, HBO is a very recognizable name in entertainment, but Warner Brothers is a much bigger name in entertainment. And Rob and I always kind of felt like, to separate the confusion, because we had HBO, HBO Now, HBO Go, and now HBO Max. I mean, it's just convoluted. They should have had WB or Warner in the name of the new service. And so, yeah, to be honest with you, Amanda, I like your idea of Warner Brothers Premium. That's not a bad name. So yeah, I don't know. I like that. Warner Brothers Premium. That kind of works. I don't even care if they call it Warner Brothers Plus anymore, because then with everybody using the word plus, everybody now instantly knows what it is when you put plus after it. So I don't know. It's not very creative, but maybe that'll work. But Warner Brothers Premium, that's not bad. That's not bad. All right, guys, listen. For everybody else who's waiting to get their questions answered from Let's Make Things Dark, Michael Wolf, Otto, and Anonymous, do not worry. We will start off tomorrow's show when we get to the live questions part with your questions. We're going to start off where we left off. So if you didn't get your question asked quite yet, don't worry. It's going to get addressed tomorrow. And don't forget, guys, that you guys can also start sending in. You don't have to wait till the show is live. You can send in those comments and questions whenever you want. And the earlier you send them in, the earlier they get read. Once again, just go to www.streamlumens.com/movieblogtv/tip and submit there, and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. And after that, that does it, guys, for today's long edition on this Monday of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and making this show a part of your day. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for bringing his glory and goodness. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in your comments and questions because of two things. You gave us great fun things to talk about, but also you supported this channel as you did it. Now, I want to mention one other thing before we sign off here. Before we sign off, I want to do one other thing. I want to talk about something that is fairly important to me. Let me just bring this up. I should have had this picture ready to go, but I'm going to have to do it now. Just give me one moment to get my bearings. But today is a very special day for me personally. And it is a very special day because today is my dad's birthday. Today is my dad's birthday. And let me talk for a second about my dad. My dad, who's hiding behind Ann there. My dad, when last time we were in Canada, my dad decided to surprise us by bringing home a whole ton of big lobster back to the ranch. And I don't eat lobster. And my dad's like, since when don't you like lobster? I'm like, I don't know, Dad, 45 years. But Ann was like, okay, Dad, let's go eat lobster. So yeah, they went up and had lobster. Listen, my dad is, and I know many people feel the same way about their dads, but let me talk for a second about my dad. My mom and my dad, but today's my dad's birthday. You guys hear me talk about my mom a lot. Michael Gardner sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thanks, Michael. My dad, as I'm sure a lot of men will say this, and it is absolutely true for me as well. My dad to me is the definition and the model to me of what a man is and what a man should be. My dad, directly and indirectly, taught me in my life by living an example. My dad was never a lecture kind of dad. My dad was never one to sit down and say, listen, John, this is how this has got to be, and this is how this works, and blah, blah, blah. That's not my dad's style of parenting. That might be the absolute right style for a lot of other parents to do. Absolutely. But I learned everything about life and about what it is to be a man from my father. Not from lessons that he would tell me, but from the way he modeled his life. I learned from my dad the preeminence of family. I watched my dad do things for family members that I didn't even care too much about. And there are some stories to tell, but there are dark corners to my in my wider family tree that I didn't like very much. But you know what? Whenever family ever needed anything, it just wasn't a question for my dad. If it's family, we do what we need to do to support family. Now, everybody says that. Everybody says that stuff. But Pasquale Campea, my dad, Pat Campea, he always lived that and modeled that. Not just for me and my siblings, not just for me and Heather and Sandy and Rob, but whenever anybody in the family needed something, if that meant we had to have some family members move into our house when, a selfish teenage John Campea was like, why are these guys moving into our house? I have less room now. It didn't matter. They were family. And my dad modeled that. My dad also modeled for me what hard work meant. My dad came over from the old country with my grandfather. My dad's entire life was about hard work and exceeding and excelling and providing for your family and doing all this stuff. And he modeled for me a work ethic and what putting in work and what putting in effort and what deserves your work and your effort and understanding why you work and why you put in effort. And hard work and family trumps everything. My dad modeled that for me and my siblings my whole life. He never sat down with us to tell us the importance of hard work. He never sat down to tell us the importance of family. He just modeled it. He just modeled it. His whole life. He still does. My mom and dad are at the age right now where they should be looking at me and my siblings. My mom and dad are at the age right now where they should be looking at me and my siblings and saying, we love you kids, but F right off. We're going to enjoy our life right now. But you know what my mom and dad still do? My mom and dad, see, I've been able to take risks in my life I've taken a lot of risks and I've rolled the dice many times. You guys know that, even in my career. But one of the reasons I've always been able to do that is because I've known that if I take a shot at something and I fail miserably at it, I can always go home to an unjudgmental, open, unconditional love kind of environment where no matter what happens, I know my mom and dad are there. When I needed my first car, my dad stepped up and got us our car. We weren't rich. Growing up, we did not have a lot of money. But my dad always made sure we had what we need. And to this day, my dad will still help me and my siblings. Whenever there's something that they need help with, that's the first thing my dad does is, what can we do to help? I mean, I'm not going to get emotional, but I love my parents and I never get to see them. And I'm not a great communicator. I'm a great communicator online, but I'm not a great communicator in face-to-face. I'm very socially awkward. And so I don't think me or my siblings tell my dad enough. Dad, you are the greatest man I have ever known. And you are the standard for me by what a man is. And whenever I try to look at myself for how I conduct business, how I work and relate with my family, and while I'm living down here and side of the family, I always measure myself by the standard of Pat Campea. So love you, Dad. Happy birthday. And thank you for giving me and my sisters and my brother the opportunity to have the life that we have. So thank you very much for that, Dad, and happy birthday. All right, guys. That'll do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back again tomorrow. I hope you join us for that. And for now, guys, my name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.